and welcome to Big Witch Energy, the podcast that journeys into the wonderful and witchy world of Motherland, Fort Salem. We're going to recap and discuss all of the delicious content in every episode. I'm Bree.
And I'm Theora.
Come along with us while we dive deep into the hows, whys, whos, and what of this amazing show.
All right. Episode 2, titled Abomination. That can't be good.
Rarely is that word ever used in a positive context. I mean, by rarely, I mean never. So.
When have you ever heard a good use of the word abomination? Literally never.
Only ironically, and especially not as regards this show. You don't want to see
right,
that
yeah, it's even worse that it's used as a title for the show.
Right.
So we can blame Brian Sudler, who wrote this episode, and Amanda Tapping directed it, but I won't blame her. So she directed 2 in a row. Good on you, Amanda, for season 2.
The only thing I blame her for is this really awesome shot from overhead in the mall later.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. She knew what she was doing.
Well, they asked her back again, so.
They did. All right, so how does Abomination start? So Abomination starts with Isadora and Alder trying to recreate the witch bomb. And they're in, I guess, some deep, dark part of the Necrolab. And they have Abigail and Raylla, like, clasping hands locked in this room. And Alder and Isadora are staring at them like they're a science experiment through this glass. And they're trying to essentially simulate the life or death experience they went through in the Tarim region to try and, like, provoke this witch bomb thing that they don't know how to control yet and use it as proof of kind of what happened. Because at this point, all anybody really knows about it is just the aftermath of what happened in the finale. Nobody knows, like, the full extent of what this is. So this is a new experiment for Isadora, and they're trying to figure out the witch bomb. And Abigail and Raylla are trying to, like, they're screaming, trying to counter whatever Isadora is doing to them in this, like, fishbowl. But they get to the point where they just, like, collapse from exhaustion, and the experiment stops, and there's no witch bomb that happens. Like, not even a tiny fizzle, like, nothing. And when it's over, Isadora just casually comments her disappointment to Alder. It's been like this for days. So, telling us that since we left off last time, it's been a hot minute that they've been doing these experiments on Raylla and Abigail, and there's been no witch bomb. So, they've been torturing them with no, like, results. No witch bomb happening. So, I have to imagine, like, what was Isadora doing off screen in those few days? So I think she has spent days locked in the room with the mycelium, just thinking outside the box as much as she could of, like, how can I torture them next? And she's just pacing that room and plotting for, like, hours trying to come up with these new tests, because when would Isadora ever have a test like this where she gets to, like, throw random work at a person? She's usually dissecting mushrooms. So, you know, she has, like, journals about, like, what worked and what didn't work, and she's gone back to Memorial Hall and she's stolen spell books. Like, she's just exhausted and very frustrated at this point that nothing is working in these experiments. It's been like this for days, and Isadora is a scientist who gets results quickly, so I imagine this is very frustrating for her and keeps her up at night.
Not to mention, it's her dream come true, though.
Well, is it her dream come true, or is this, like, a nightmare version of her dream? Because I feel like Isadora wants to be the one in Raylla's position.
To an extent, but I also think that she's having a damn, you know, she's in her element also. Yes, she would rather be the one that the mycelium chose, but I think that also in Isadora's brain, it would be like, well, I wouldn't have this problem if the mycelium chose me.
Exactly. And she's mad. She's definitely jealous of what's going on here, but I agree that she's having fun with the high-profile experiment with Alder. But it has to be frustrating because she's not getting results, and I feel like she's somebody who gets results pretty quickly, so it's just like, God damn it, what can I do next, you know?
Yeah. She just looked a little too happy to me in a lot of these scenes where she's expressing her disappointment, but at the same time, she's got like this weird little smile on her face. And I'm like, girl, are you okay? Mentally, though.
No.
I love you. You're a mad scientist, and I'm
She's putting the
into it.
mad in mad scientist right now. I'm telling you, she hasn't slept. This is keeping her up at night. She's going a little crazy.
Does she ever sleep,
I think she
though?
does power naps. But
Yeah, at her desk.
yeah,
In
no,
the
she does
MIC
everything in that
room.
room. I'm pretty sure she sleeps in there. Like she does lots of stuff. So now those power naps are spent journaling about these experiments and what she could do next.
You know she writes her journaling code.
Oh yeah,
though.
she's full on Ann Listers that stuff. It's in her own
Yeah,
code.
she does.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so funny.
It's not quite as juicy
No,
as
the
Analysters.
content is less sapphic than Isadora's.
Less sapphic, more fungi.
I imagine it's darker too. It's just like, wow, it's a lot of death
Oh, absolutely.
in here.
A lot of death and a lot of how can I torture these two
Yeah,
cadets.
imagine somebody finding the journals on an archaeological dig later and they're like, torture? Jesus Christ, there's journals just about torturing these two women.
Wow, the army was hardcore, except it was just Isadora. Well, I mean, and technically
yeah,
Alder.
who's this Alder conspirator? She seemed just as giddy as the writer.
And I'm like, they have different goals, though. Like, I think Alder is gone into the, I'm thinking of them as an asset rather than the cadets, the people, the humans.
Oh so. Yeah, no, Isadora's eye on the prize of like, oh, this is a scientific magic breakthrough. And then Alder, Elliot talks about it the After the Storm. Alder is very much like, oh my god, this could be the next weapon in the arsenal that I have to show off to the world kind of thing. So she's thinking like globally at this point about how they are weapons. Isadora's like, you're a scientific breakthrough. Like nobody really is viewing them as people in this moment.
And that's Raelle's damn point for since the last episode.
Yeah, no, this is, again, Raelle's worst nightmare coming to fruition, because she's like, this is everything she warned about, like you just said, and now it's all happening in real time, because of course it is. Because, again, remember everyone, they're not really free people. Like, these people are all enslaved to the government, so...
Which Abigail's been comfortable with from... like pretty much birth, since it's been drilled into her.
Yeah, but if you think about how Abigail grew up, like even though like technically they're enslaved to this army system, Abigail grew up in the sector of that enslavement where they get to live this very privileged life. So it can almost feel like you're not enslaved and you have control and you have power, when at the end of the day nobody does. Yeah. And this is just a like harsh reality of like that going off the deep end. It's like your own cadets are now science experiments kind of thing. Yeah, so ultimately Alder's like, oh, this is disappointing, we're not getting anywhere. She's like, I have a delegation coming up with The Hague and I want to show off this promising new weapon to fight the Camarilla, because that's where Alder's head's at. She's like, they could be a powerful weapon. I want to show off the weapon to The Hague. So that's where she's at.
She's desperately trying to grab her power and respect back from all the Hague members who've been dissing her hard recently, especially Sharma.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other part of that is that now that the Camarilla is very real, you know, the Camarilla is very scary, and Alder's probably like, well, we need some new... like, we've been losing the battle against the Spree, who's a ragtag group of, like... witches
who we should know how to fight because we're witches.
Yeah, and like the Spree is not super organized. They're not this great like militant
They're not
group.
great spies.
No, exactly. So I feel like in Alder's mind, she's like, we should have been winning against the Spree, but we've been losing. Now we have the Camarilla, who's much more funded. They've been hanging out for 300 years. Yeah, they're organized. They're cunning. You know, this is a much...
technologically advanced.
Yeah, they're a more prepared group to fight. So, like, if we've been losing against the Spree, we're really fucked when it comes to the Camarilla. So I think Alder's like, I need to give the Hague some hope that we can win, because everyone's going to be like, oh, fuck, like, we're doomed. So I think it's partially to be like, look, we're the most powerful entity in the United States. It's also like, hey, guys, look, hope. We have this big new weapon. we can win to like motivate people and be a leader kind of thing. So there's a lot going on with where Alder's head's at, but she's really not thinking of Abigail and Raylla as humans right now. It's more so about them as a weapon. And so Abigail and Raylla ultimately come out of the chamber like pretty exhausted, and Alder graciously thanks them for all their efforts being tortured by Isadora for the greater good, Thanks, take one for America or whatever. And Isadora is blurry in the background at this point, calculating her next experiment on them. But Alder lets it drop that like, well, this has been great, thanks for your time, but we're going to suspend the test for right now. And Abigail immediately protests this, and she's like, wait, no, we can keep going, because in Abigail's mind, this new power she potentially has could make her special, could give her, make Abigail a name and step out of the Bellwether shadow, so she's very much clinging to whatever this witch bomb thing is. And Raylla gives her this look of just like, girl, what the fuck? We just got let off the hook. Like, no, like, what? No, stop it. But Alder ultimately ignores them, and she's like, listen, like, you have more important things, like, you gotta join Tally at War College, like, go to War College, and they leave. And the minute the girls leave, Alder immediately goes back to plotting how to harness the witch bomb, because that's all she really cares about. It's not really about anything else, it's about harnessing this witch bomb. And Isadora suggests, well, whenever you do an experiment, why don't we, like, go back to the basics, and let's study the OG witch bomb in the Tarim region for the clues. And she's like that idea, Alder? Cool. Funny enough, I happen to have something that just came from the Tarim Basin that we were just talking about. So let's go back to my mycelium room and go look at this specimen that I have. And so they go back in that room, and Isadora's like getting this box ready and just opening it up, and Alder's like staring at the mycelium and just saying, I always feel so humbled in her presence. So Alder calls it a her. She feels humbled by it. Put a pin in that. Meanwhile, Isadora's opening the box, and inside the box is this dead human head with sunglasses on it, and it's covered in mushrooms. And so this is something, she says, that came directly from the epicenter of the witch bomb. And they both look at this thing in awe, like, what the fuck? And Isadora comments, I've never seen anything like it. Nothing human remains. So indicating that this is a human-looking head that's just like straight up a mushroom at this point. And she's quotes, I'm confident my examination will reveal what we need to know, like, trust the science. It's the most Isadora line ever. And Alder makes the comment, like, great, you figure out the science of it, and then we can recreate it. Because that highlights where the two of them are at. Like, Isadora wants the truth of the phenomena. Alder is just like, great, this needs to be a weapon. And we need to be able to do it again for war reasons.
Pretty intense.
They're both so intense. Having scenes with them together is pretty fascinating. It's awesome.
Can't. With these two, it make me feel like I'm going through something, I don't know, like so super emotional, but like very focused. And
yes. Ooh, I love that. Great description.
Those two together, if they were in a room, I would be overwhelmed just by walking into the room, the intensity. Yeah,
like it could be dead quiet, but it's still palpable intensity, like you're saying.
I think it'd be worse if it was dead quiet. Yeah. Just because that's all you could feel was everything emanating off of them. Jeez.
Yeah, I feel like they're both very, like, in their heads, too. And so, like,
exactly.
And it just, like, projects outward how intense their thoughts probably are. Yeah.
And they both have very palpable presence.
Ooh, yes, agreed.
When they're in a room, they're just those kind of people, and it's down to the actresses that you can't help but look at them when they are in a scene.
Yeah, agreed. It's fun. Thank you for giving us scenes with them together.
Yes.
I didn't realize how much we needed that.
Precisely.
Yeah,
I think that every time I've rewatched this episode, I get kind of a different thing, and that was one of the things that hit me this time was those two together. They make, like, I don't think they should probably be in a room together for an extended period of time.
Probably not.
Because they would not, things would come out of that would not be approved by The Hague.
Yeah, there'd be a whole different kind of witch bomb happening. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Comes out of that. Yeah, but super, super fun. More scenes of them together. It's really crazy good. Kudos to Emily and Lynn for that.
Lynn.
So
Yeah.
good.
Okay, so we go from the intensity of that fun time to the units about to start war. We get our first glimpse of War College, and I just want to point out like the little details in this. It's like a common room on one side and a dining room on the other.
Yes.
But the first thing you see is this witch playing this game, and it's like some kind of cross between foosball and pinball with a top that's spinning.
It's weird. It's way more advanced than biddy chess.
Yeah, it's so much more like the biddies must not have the energy to play this one because that sucker is going, and she's just kind of guiding it with, I guess,
her mind. I don't know,
her mind or seed sound that we can't hear.
Yeah. Oh yeah, potentially. Yeah, I couldn't figure out that game, so that was an interesting little like glimpse of like witch leisure stuff.
It is. It's kind of cool, like witch leisure, but it looks like it would take a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So it made me tired. Just that hot second flashing through there. And then we see another witch who's doing something far more recognizable and traditional, which was scrying with a pendulum.
Mm-hmm.
So that was relatively normal compared to the crazy game. But basically, this is our introduction to War College, the common room, dining room, where everybody seems to congregate. And our unit is in the dining portion of this area, having their, I don't know what meal are we at this point.
I don't know, but there was definitely fruit, and Tally wasn't asking anyone to smell it. So she got over that.
I guess. Yeah, so I guess we're at breakfast?
Yeah, that's what I thought, because fruit.
Yeah. So basically, you see, obviously, when we start the scene, Abigail's bummed about the whole, we're not making any progress. They stopped the test. And Raylla's just going the hell off about how they're freaking lab rats, and she wants to figure this out for themselves, not through being tested by Isadora, and I don't blame her.
Right. They're being tortured, like, totally understandable.
Which still disappoints Abigail. I mean, she, as Abigail does, she spews out the few, like, party lines of, well, that's part of being a soldier, etc., etc. And Raylla's like, that's not being a soldier, that's being a freaking test subject. Like, the government already owns our asses, and now they're going to torture us? Basically, which was Raylla's fear all along.
Yeah. Again, yeah, we've mentioned this, but to Abigail's point, sadly, she's right. Like, this is part of being a soldier, because you lose your bodily autonomy when you're a soldier.
Exactly.
So, unfortunately, yeah, but to Raylla's point, this would have been avoided if they kept this to themselves.
Absolutely. You know? But I don't know how long they really could have. I feel like something would have happened that... It isn't triggered by anything like every day. Obviously, Raylla's not going to go into witch bomb mode until something is really threatening her. So I think they could have kept it a secret for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, even with Isadora and her team, like, extensively studying the Tarim area, like, it's not guaranteed they would have really traced that back to Abigail and Raylla, because it was such a weird phenomena. So they potentially could have kept this a secret a while longer. But I agree, like, eventually something would have come to surface, like it was inevitable.
Right.
So, but that was just like Raylla clinging to, like, denial. Like, I don't want to be in this scenario, you know?
Don't blame me, Raylla. So, we kind of get into Tally talking about the whole dream of all, like, her tuning into Alder's dream thing, and she's both horrified and, as you would be, of a nightmare that's that real, but also excited by it. So I think that connection between herself and Alder is the source of that, along with the fact that she's getting to see all of these things that no one else has probably ever seen or knew about, besides the people there. because she's not. I don't think she's totally convinced that this is real at this point, like that they're real memories or whatever. But she's excited to be a part of it in a way because she really, I think she really does miss Alder and that connection that they had when she was biddied. So this is kind of like a way of her still being able to glimpse into that and feel that connection. But at the same time, I agree. It is kind of super cool.
No,
Like
definitely.
to live out Alder's parts of Alder's life.
Even though centipedes might attack you.
Yeah, and you would have the injuries in real life.
Yeah,
Like
that part's wild. But I think for Tally too, I agree with you that at this point I don't think she understands like what exactly these dreams are she's having, like real or not. But I think in the back of Tally's mind, judging by what we know from Tally so far about how like the truth means a lot to her and she's a knower and all this stuff, that like if it was true, like how cool would that be to get to see like a truth about Alder? You know, I think I think she's clinging to that hope perhaps, and that makes it exciting in a way for her.
absolutely, for sure. That kind of gets that kind of takes care of that subject, and they move on to Tally is like, there's a lot of rumors about it. When is there not rumors about you people?
I know, that was my favorite line. She's like, apparently there are a lot of rumors going on about us. And it's like, this has been true since the unit got to Fort Salem. Like, the whole time, there's rumors about them on base.
There were rumors before you got there.
Well, yeah, because they're like, ooh, the next bellwether's coming. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
that's exactly what I was thinking about. So there was always going to be chatter since Abigail was a part of the unit,
right?
But then add in Raelle's relationship with a spree agent.
Raelle's just general lesbian Jesus vibes.
Raelle's lesbian Jesus vibes. Tally getting biddied and unbiddied. I mean, of course they're gonna like freaking
always,
because people are going around talking about how Alder didn't keep Tally as a biddy because she wasn't good enough,
right? And now suddenly they're in War College when they were designated to be war meat or whatever. So yeah. Now there's new rumors about them.
So everyone who's a little bit jealous of the Bellwether unit is going with the story that Petra got them in, which would have been true for Abigail.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Had she not gone on the Tareem mission. But it's not true in this case because I really believe they earned their place. Like, I mean, they earned their place before they even had to go on that mission, in my mind.
For sure. But I understand from an outsider's perspective, like, how fishy the whole thing looks, especially the unbidding of Tally.
Yes.
You know? It's almost like, oh, Alder definitely favors them and the rules don't apply to them and all this stuff. So I get the rumors in this case, but...
Yeah, no, I get it too. Because no one has the insight into them.
Totally.
And you see even later that they're going to keep their secrets away from even their company.
Yeah.
So it's, I would talk about them too if I were outside the unit. That's just normal.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're kind of in a college type situation, which is an extension of high school. Right. So
yeah, we just graduated war high school and now we're in war college.
Exactly. So Raelle sees someone staring at her, a very striking individual, and she like leans forward and is like, "What?"
Why is she so hostile here?
I think it's because she's tired from being tortured by Isadora, is tired of people talking about her, is afraid that people are going to be talking about her whole thing with Scylla. I think she feels in one way guilty and ashamed of some stuff, but at the same time, like, come at me, bro. She's defensive. Okay, and that's fair. Normal for Raelle.
That's fair.
So she sees this person. After Tally's been talking about how they're being gossiped about, she sees this person staring straight at her with this little smirk on their face. I mean, I get it. I would have been like, the fuck? What do you want? As well. But also I put into it, she's probably grumpy because she's been tortured for days by Isadora.
Yeah, it's true. She looks like hell.
Haggard. She's so haggard. So, yeah, after we get The person that was staring at her after that just kind of smiles at her, and I think that made it a little bit more irritating for Raylla. But then Abigail gets into, well, I think Tally kind of redirects them and asks about War College and kind of tries to get Abigail to give them the 411 about what's going to happen and everything. So they discuss how you don't call it a company, you call it your coven. So there's that part, and then they point out that they're in Sekhmet company, and all the companies are named after goddesses of war. So let's go into Sekhmet and who she is. So she's the Egyptian goddess of war, destroyer of the enemies of the sun god Ray. Sun god.
Ray.
Destroyer of the sun's enemies. Okay.
Good job, Elliot.
Keep that in your brain. Associated with disease, healing, medicine. Okay, there's your next one.
Who are you describing here?
She's depicted as a lioness. She gives life and fertility through the yearly floods of the Nile. So she is a life giver, she is a healer, and she protects or defeats the enemies of the sun. Okay, who fits that description?
I mean, it could be Raylla, or it could be a symbol of Raylla's defender, because, like, Raylla is the sun, and this is the goddess protecting the sun, so the coven is going to protect Raylla on some bigger mission, would be my interpretation.
I think it's a combination of the two.
Definitely.
Quite honestly. I think this episode especially, I've noticed a lot of Elliot combining symbols to give multiple meanings to things. And this is, for me, an example of that. Because not only does it represent Raylla, it also represents the people that are around her as family who will protect her.
Yeah, and heal her, too. Because, like, Raylla, of course, per Elliot's norm, is, like, broken and defeated right now, like you said. And so she needs healing herself, like, spiritually, I guess, emotionally. So, yeah. Very cool symbolism behind the coven name.
Points.
Love it.
Points awarded.
Go Sekhmet.
Go Sekhmet. And then the conversation turns to Penelope because she's sitting at a table by herself.
Poor Penelope.
I know. I feel so she's only there in the War College area because she is at Fort Salem before basic starts. So they've kind of pulled her over to where there are actually people, which is a good idea. So Tally just thinks that she's lonely, and since she was in the room and biddied when Silver came to talk to Alder, she knows that Penelope's dad, she says, is a bit freaked out by the witch thing, but I just say straight up, he's a witch hater.
Yep. We'll get into that.
The end.
Yeah.
So then we get that we're getting to see sort of a little connection forming with Tally and Penelope, and this is the beginning of when we see that.
Yeah, it's very sweet. It's like, again, Tally being the empath she typically is. Yeah, she's just a natural, like, empath.
I also love how during this whole scene, she's jumped around to 3 or 4 different subjects and is directing the conversation.
Yeah. She probably got some conversation skills from her tie to Alder, because Alder does that, where she just directs conversations.
Yeah, and I also think that Tally, who has had time to rest and be, like, in a good place, versus the zombie Raylla over here, who's been tortured for days and is pissed about it, and then sad Abigail, who's also been tortured for days but was not pissed about it.
Yeah, they're kind of in their own heads with their own crap going on, whereas Tally finally has her own autonomy over her thoughts.
I think she got some kind of energy boost from the Alder thing, too.
Well, yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She sure did.
Yes. So those are my observations about that whole sequence. But
All right, so from the unit's little intro to War College, we shoot out over to Willa and Scylla hanging out in the Spree living room.
I love it.
And let's color theory outfit sighting. So Scylla's outfit, she's wearing a blue and green checkered flannel. Yes, it's super gay. Remember, blue is Scylla's color. Green is the Scylla plus Raylla color, so it's kind of highlighting her state of mind here. And mother-in-law and daughter-in-law are sipping white wine and chatting about their latest espionage. So Willa notes that, it's been a week, basically, since the last episode. She gives us that little gem. So we now know that Raylla and Abigail were being tortured for a full week. So no wonder they look exhausted. But meanwhile, Scylla has been living in the Spree safe house and working with Willa to take down the Camarilla during that week. And Scylla reveals during that time she's been snooping around all these rallies that we saw in a glimpse of last time, and all these vigils that are constantly going on, and says there's someone powerful pulling these strings because, quote, they are too well funded and too well organized. So that's completely different from, again, the Spree stuff that we've been talking about, or like any other non-government funded organization we've seen so far. So somebody wealthy is behind this group. And no one here has used the word Camarilla in any of these rallies. So Scylla's pointing that out. Like, it smells like the Camarilla, but no one's saying that word out loud. And what I wanted to note about this whole conversation, when she's talking about this, like, Scylla seems super excited and, like, full of life. So I feel like right now, Willa's kind of given her a new sense of purpose that's been restored, which has been, like, huge with Scylla's character, is, like, having a purpose and something that drives her. And she now has something to believe in wholeheartedly and put her energy into. So total 180 from, like, the dungeon scene in the finale when she was, like, kind of broken at her wit's end. All she had was, like, Raylla. Now she has something new to, like, put all her energy into. And she seems, like, really relieved and excited by it in this scene.
She needed it.
She did, for sure.
The only good thing to come out of the Camarilla.
Yeah. Scylla's sanity.
Yeah. Scylla having something to bring her back to herself.
Yeah, for sure. So she was lost and now she's found, kind of thing. And Willa continues, like, yeah, that's all nice and great, but we need, like, real receipts that this is the Camarilla. How are we going to do that? And Scylla's like, well, I happen to make some friends, Bonnie and Shane, this couple. They seem pretty well connected, and they always seem to know where and when the next event's going to take place, usually before anyone else. So Scylla, through her snooping, thinks she found somebody in that couple who is connected to higher-ups, basically. And she notes, today they're going to be at the mall. And by mall, she means the mall. The mall, the murder at the mall.
Yes,
the one from the pilot. That mall. There's only one mall, apparently.
Ever in the entire
It's not even
US.
in Salem, so it's like
yeah.
It's the mall. It's like not even in that area. But they're going to be at the mall. And Willa's like, yeah, great. Can you get close to them? Because, mission. And Scylla has this line where she's like, well, the wife seems lonely. Like, she could use a friend. And I could be her friend. And I think while Scylla is using all her senses here to figure this out, I think given her entire state of existence, she can kind of, like, relate to this. She's, like, projecting a little bit of her own loneliness. And the fact that she needs a real friend and kind of foreshadowing the relationships Scylla is going to develop during series 2, which are going to become important. One of them is with Willa. And, Willa's like, okay, that sounds good, but, like, be careful. Aw, so cute. Be careful.
Be careful, because you know what happens when you get too close. She's also like, all right, listen, don't be getting involved with this lady. Like, too much.
Willa's like, is she hot? Do I have to be worried?
You have a track record. Does she look like my daughter?
Listen, Scylla can do whatever she wants. But, yeah.
No, she can't.
Yes, she can. It's for the mission. Anyway.
No, she's as much as this is for the mission, I don't think she'd ever... I really do, like, when she said friend, I was like, okay, yeah, actual friend. So it's like, she's not getting involved with anybody. Don't worry, Willa.
No, Bonnie has a daughter and is married. That's not gonna happen. But yeah, I think it's more like Scylla kind of needs a friend and is like she looks like she
Scylla
could need a
does need
friend.
a
I need a
friend.
friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. She's projecting here. And after Willa's cute, be careful. She says she flips it and is like, "Don't lose sight of the mission." Like you know what happens when you get too close, girl. And it's a dig at Scylla being a bad spy because, well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this like pregnant pause where you can see like the wheels turning in Scylla's eyes, and her mind is taking her back to Raylla and something she clearly wants to ask Scylla this whole week, or ask Willa all week long. And she says, why didn't you reach out to her, Willa? Why? And then Willa tells us this really insightful personal anecdote about basically how she kind of ended up in the spree, or at least on the side of being distrustful towards the army. And she explains that when Raylla was 10, Willa spent a total of 18 days with her family. And she mentions, like, it was like that a lot when Raylla was growing up. Like, basically, she was constantly being deployed and sent away from her family because the army didn't approve of who I married, because she married a civilian and not a witch. So the army was like being prejudiced and othering her, and they took out Willa's stubbornness and Willa's trying to grab her own autonomy and say, no, this is who I'm marrying, like you can't stop me. And they're like, okay, but we can punish you by keeping you away from Edwin and, as a consequence, Raylla, her daughter. And so Raylla grew up without her mother. So it kind of highlights like why Raylla potentially is so upset about losing Willa. It's because she never really had her mother. So you have to wonder in Raylla's mind, like how much of what she thinks about Willa is true versus something she concocted in her head, because I would imagine most of the memories or thoughts she has about Willa either came from her dad or just came from her missing her mother and not actually having her mother. So like any interaction she had with Willa was probably put on a pedestal because she had so few. So it's very sad.
Not to mention all of those postcards and letters that she had. Like all those pieces of her mother's, she probably put together in a jigsaw, along with all the pieces you've already mentioned, a jigsaw of her mom that's just different than the real person, because that's all she had. So she's constructed like an image, to the point where it's her mother was always untouchable, so it's like an untouchable pedestal, hero worship in a way type relationship, which is so different from reality.
Yeah, I imagine her, what she thinks of when she thinks of Willa, she meaning Rael, it's half fantasy. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
because she barely had any time with her mother. So Rael really doesn't know her mom outside of like these letters that Willa controlled and like wrote down very specifically for her. So it's almost like their relationship was very sparse, yes, but also like not real in a certain sense
Mm-hmm.
because the time they had together was so stunted by the army interfering essentially, which again, it's just the theme of this episode is like nobody has bodily autonomy basically when it comes to the army. And so, as a consequence of all this, Raelle grew up without her mother. And as Willa is explaining the story, she's getting angrier and angrier. She's talking about this. So you see how Willa feels about the army because of what they did to her and what they did to her family and what they did to Raelle. And so she expresses that anger kept growing until she lost sight of everything but the Spree's mission, because ultimately the Spree's mission was getting back at the army from Willa's perspective, and she was just on a personal revenge mission. So now her sending Scylla to get Raelle makes more sense because this was all very personal to Willa from the beginning. But tragically, she says, in the end, Raelle still grew up without me. Like, regardless of whether I would have stayed in the army and my daughter would have known I was alive, or I made this decision to get back at the army and try to like make sure my daughter didn't have this life I lived, either way, Raelle grew up without her. So it's, Willa didn't get what she wanted in the end. Like, it was, like, it's very sad. And she's like, I live with that every single day.
I also think that her, not only did she do it because she wanted a different life for Rael, and she was so angry, like you said, that she lost sight of everything but the Spree's mission. I think it was also a way of her protecting Rael from her own anger and her own, because that's a destructive type of, she wouldn't want to bring that to Rael either. I mean, the more angry she got, it probably seemed like her only option, because she was never going to change. There were two things that were going to happen. She was either going to stay deployed over and over and over again, or she was going to die at some point. So she took herself out of that equation with the army. And yes, she lost the little time she might have had with Rael, but in her mind, I think she was also A, going to try to make a different life for her daughter, and B, going to protect her daughter even from anything having to do with herself. Because that anger is I could see her not wanting Rael to see her like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I think maybe over time that's what it became, but initially when
Oh yeah, not initially.
yeah, based on how she phrased it, like she's like, I lost sight of literally everything. So she lost sight of her family too. Like in that when she became so entrenched in the anger, you can't see anything else. I think she was just like revenge on the army. And I think now Willa, as she's like coming out of this, because now the focus is on the Camarilla, I think Willa is starting to reflect more on all of this and be like, oh, fuck. You know, like, and then what, to your point, like, well, you know, it's probably for the best Raylla didn't see any of this. Because, I mean, again, her goal was to get Raylla out of the army. That was the whole reason she sent Scylla in. So, like, Raylla was going to see this angry Willa who's in the spree trying to do stuff. Like, she was kind of preparing for that. But now it's different because it's the Camarilla. So, yeah, I could see that both ways. I think primarily she was just like, fuck this, and my daughter shouldn't have to live like this.
Well, the army took her family away from her in two ways, so...
They did. No matter what, they were going to take... The army won. That's the sucky part for Willa.
So not only did she lose them in that she wasn't there, she lost them in that she lost sight of everything.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's a good parallel story to, like, what Scylla's journey has been as well. Like, she was somebody who took this whole thing very personally and lost her parents because of the army and became entrenched in her anger and joined the spree. And so there's a lot of parallels here. And it just highlights, like, how easy it is to fall into these groups, like, when you have this very personal traumatic thing that happens that takes everything from you in your mind, you know?
Yeah, and it's easy to be indoctrinated for certain, you know, especially for certain kinds of people who have been taken advantage of in their lives. In any case, in the real world, how many people have gone into things like cults, and you think, well, that person's super intelligent. Why would they ever fall for that? It's not about intelligence.
No,
it's about emotions, mindset, vulnerability.
Yeah. And
so
yeah, exactly. But yeah, so not Scylla. Their names are so similar. I keep doing that. My bad. Willa keeps going and says, you know, that was all great about the spree, but like once the Camarilla returned, I started thinking maybe Rael would be safer in the army, because now you have this big, bad, very organized group, and you know, maybe Rael with her unit surrounded by other army people might be for the best for her for now.
That and the spree sucks.
Exactly. Exactly. Willa knows that. She's like, we're not great, okay? But we're something.
We're very scattered. I don't have a huge institution surrounding me, so she's going to be safer where she is.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, in the last episode, Willa was in that scenario in Belgium where, like, half the leadership was taken out in one go. So she's like, well, maybe my daughter's better off at a fortified fort.
Yeah.
Now, you know, while we sort this out.
With a 320-something-year-old witch. Super witch.
Yeah, you know?
So
good on you, Scylla. But anyway, so Scylla's like, okay, now that the Camarilla is back, what about, you know, your relationship with Rael and approaching her now, essentially is what she's getting at, because things are different. And Willa basically says, what would I even say? Which is so true, because we talked about this last episode, but like, yeah, Willow, what was the end goal here? You get Raylla, and you're like, surprise? Like, what is the end goal? Because how on earth do you explain to Raylla, after all those letters that are just like, I love you more than the earth, sky, magic, and all this stuff, and then you're like, yeah, JK, I pretended to be dead. You know what I mean? Like, where do you even start with that conversation? So I think to highlight what we were just talking about the anger, I think the anger is starting to finally fade, and Willa's like, shit, like, how do I actually navigate all this messiness now?
Yeah, it's a giant nest of thorns that she's just does not know how to navigate, because no one would. I mean,
no, I think really where Willa's at is, how do I explain this to Raylla? Because either is it better if I come clean to her and like break her heart all over again, or do I keep living in the shadows and just try to make the world a better place for her? And it's really this impossible decision that's heartbreaking for everybody involved. And now we have Scylla, who's just in the middle of all this, and just she is completely biased, but she's still someone who has this very unique insight into both Willa and Raylla, which is the most interesting part of this whole conversation for me, personally.
Yeah, you can see. I think that also, in my mind, I also had a little thing like, damn, Scylla's like looking for tips on how to how to navigate her own situation in a way, because she has they're parallel kind of situations in that she lied to Raylla for how long, and then betrayed her, and you can obviously see that she's still she was absolutely telling the truth, that she's still in love with Raylla, and I don't think she expects anything, but in the back of her mind that she's like, I would really love to get Raylla back.
Yeah, but the difference between Scylla and Willa is that Scylla told Raylla the truth. Yeah, it was in the dungeon. Like, she actually had
she did
ovaries to come clean about that. Willa has not, but Scylla did. No. She's like, hey, here's everything. Like, take it or leave it, Raylla. This is the truth. Kind of thing.
And then Raylla left it, and that's got to be painful. I think that Scylla, for one, thinks about Raylla so much, obviously, but also her kind of developing Willa would make her want to know more about her that decision-making process, and how she could she obviously, I would think about it too, like, well, couldn't you like get back, like, let her know at least that you're alive?
Yeah, I feel like Scylla has this unique perspective where she can give Willa advice, because Scylla was, I feel like it's worse with Willa, because again, Raylla's constantly collar triggered all the time. But Scylla was kind of in a similar scenario. She's like, Raylla really loved me, and like, I fucked it up and was doing personal, vendetta things, but I came clean, and like, kind of thing. So
yes,
and Willa has not, so she could give her advice.
I think also Scylla knows Raylla more than Willa does.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Scylla has spent more days with her than Willa has, judging by that story, sadly enough. That's what I mean. Like, again, Willa's perception of Raylla has to be completely fantasy, too, because she doesn't really know her daughter.
That goes both ways.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
She knows her daughter from, the aspects of their history and her being her mother. Like I feel like that gives you some insight in a way, because she was around when she was little, I'm assuming, to an extent.
I think to an extent, yeah.
Before she was, able to, in any case. But yeah, current Raylla, Scylla knows current Raylla more than probably anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Aside from like the unit, maybe, but yeah. Definitely more.
Yeah, the unit would be privy to things that Scylla wouldn't, but Scylla would be privy to things that the unit isn't as well.
For sure. So, yeah, again, half fantasy.
I love that scene so much. It's such a little scene, but it's so much. There's so much in it, and I love how they both get emotional about Raylla at the end.
Yeah, because these two have a lot in common,
and
they're just so fun.
They are so fun, and they both love Raylla, so.
They do.
A little teary-eyed in both of them. Freaking Diana.
It's tragic, man.
I love Diana.
She's so great.
So that's, yeah. That's going to take us to our Sekhmet Coven meeting for the first time. Which before we even get into the interactions within this scene, I want to stop once again, because this is all new stuff that we're seeing. So let's introduce the room before we introduce the characters
Real
to
quick,
one another.
Old sighting, but something that needs to be pointed out. There's lacrosse sticks over the mantle.
I was about to say that!
Yeah!
Okay. I said there's old lacrosse sticks. Woo! It reminds me of Theora. This is obviously the sport of the witch's army.
It is. It's not whatever that weird top game was that girl was playing. It's lacrosse.
It's lacrosse. Absolutely.
Yes, talking about the room, it's super interesting.
So, there are symbols abound and a lot of regalia around the room. Some of it you can't really see because it's so small and it's towards the very upper part of the wall where it meets the ceiling. Mm-hmm. But I do want to point out the colors in all of those are red, which is Sekhmet, the goddess's color, is red. So there's that tidbit. And then I'm going to go to, there's a tapestry to the left of the fireplace that's basically, you've got a crescent, and then you've got these crossed swords pointing up and crossed arrows pointing up. So the crossed swords are at the bottom of the crescent, and then the crossed arrows are at the top. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to get into heraldry, which I'm the freaking nerd that has been into heraldry since I was a kid, don't ask. Crossed swords pointing up is a symbol of battle, which makes sense. And then you've got crossed arrows pointing up, or crossed arrows in general, are a symbol of, like, it's like a symbol of friendship or crossing paths. So it's the crossing of paths of people and a relationship forming or a friendship. And then below the crescent, you've got the symbol for water. So water is, a lot of things, can symbolize a lot of different things, but emotions is one.
Also, if you're talking Egyptian goddess Sekhmet, the Nile, and
the Nile, exactly,
so central to that whole civilization. Like everything revolved around the Nile and the flooding of the Nile. So it could be like life.
Yes, it could be life, because without that, life-giving.
Yeah.
So there's that. On the right, it's a tapestry that's a little harder because it's a bunch of the main part of it seems to be combined symbols. So it's not just one symbol, it's a couple combined. And the best I could come up with is there is a symbol in Egyptian history that is like this, but not really. See, this to me more resembles the triumphant cross, which is a symbol of Jesus.
Lesbian Jesus. Hydrate yourselves.
Hydrate, which is a symbol of Jesus being triumphant over anything. Ooh. So Jesus will win, Jesus will live forever. That's what it's a symbol of. So it kind of looks like the triumphant cross, but the main post of the cross is an arrow. So we've learned there it's not cross arrows, it's just one arrow. So that's like a directional thing. So I don't know if I'm way off base and if that's just, but I don't think they're going to put that symbol on anything just to put that symbol on anything.
No, this is Motherland. It's there on purpose.
So I will point out also that the background behind the symbol is red, Sekhmet's color, and gold being the sun. So the gold is the symbol itself, and that would be the sun. But it's
Yeah.
was super interesting to me that correlated with the triumphant cross in Jesus. So I don't know.
Another sun god. So there's lots of
Yeah. Yeah.
fascinating.
It's also interesting if you think of it as, I'm not sure how to pronounce the Anka.
I'm not sure.
It's the Egyptian symbol that it looks like a keyhole on top, but it's a cross.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know how to pronounce that either. But yeah, I know what you're talking
somebody
about.
teach us.
Yeah.
But there are modern instances where people have turned that symbol upside down, but the part of it that would be at the bottom is a key shape, and the one in the actual episode is not a key shape, it's a circle, and the triumphant cross is the cross on top of the earth. So that makes more sense to me that it's a sphere. That's why I went with triumphant cross, because it's a sphere, not a key hole.
Well, I wonder if it's like, again, foreshadowing that, like, Lesbian Jesus is going to save the world.
Exactly.
Raylla, the chosen one. I don't know.
Could be.
With the power of Sekhmet behind her.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, I love it.
Mm-hmm. So, there's our symbolism.
Thank you for pointing all of that out. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. I couldn't help it. I love symbols. I love heraldry. I'm a nerd.
Yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, I really hope Bree goes into this, because there's so many. Again, the decorum in the room. It's because people's whole jobs are doing things like putting stuff in rooms, like when they film stuff. Like, there's whole ass jobs dedicated to this. So, like, it's on purpose that these things are in there.
Yeah.
And with how OCD Elliot is about all his world building, the symbols aren't just random symbols where like, that looks witchy. It's like, no, they're there on purpose, so it's worth pointing out.
And that's one of the wonderful aspects of this show is a lot of times I'm brought out of a show because it's less believable, considering they'll put the wrong symbol for something in a scene, and I know that it's the wrong symbol because I'm a nerd, but other people might not, and it takes me out of the scene. But Elliot is as much of a nerd as we are.
Wait, do you want a real life funny example of that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Not to trigger people, but I hate these people. But those dude bros who have those horrible podcasts where they're basically like alpha men or whatever. Apparently they're having an alpha convention, and
what?
I know it's disgusting, but on their like promotional whatever that they're using for this, they of course were putting like for alphas, but they used the lambda symbol because it looks like an A in our alphabet. And like, it just goes to show you again, like, the aesthetics, and you're just like, that's not alpha. Alpha is literally from the Greek alphabet, and it's a specific symbol. But you chose the Greek symbol that looks like the A in your alphabet, not the Greek alphabet. And it's like, so it's really the lambda convention if you're reading it, which is what they deserve.
Were none of you idiots in a frat?
Right? A bunch of morons. Like, but it's what they deserve. That goes to show you.
It is what they deserve.
They have no brain cells. But
my God. I'm so triggered.
Right. But it makes me laugh because that shows you the lack of intelligence.
Oh my goodness.
But it's crap like that. When people do that and you're just like, that's not what that means. You just did it because it looked cool.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that gets me.
No. And it goes to show you, again, like, not every show has people working on it who are really in tune with, like, the meaning of the show and, like, the symbolism that goes into it. I can name very, very few shows that kind of do things like that. This is definitely one of them, where Elliot very much is, like, purposeful about the decorum, like, all the symbolism, all the symbols for the witchery. It's not just, like, random witch symbols. Like, they think about this when they're crafting the show.
I'm sure there are times here and there where they have to, like, make do with things and whatnot, but
it's not consistent.
No, it's not. And so it just really makes me appreciate this show and what has been the attention and energy, because it takes a hell of a lot of energy to do this, that goes into it. They're not just making this show for the purpose of making money and making a show. They're making this show. Elliot's making this show because he absolutely loves this world that he's built, and the show freaking deserves so many more seasons than a lot of the crap that's on TV right now that has gotten like 15 seasons.
I know. Can we let Grey's Anatomy die, is what I'm saying.
Please!
Stop asking
Let it
Sandra
die.
about it. Just let it die.
Somebody take Grey's... I will take a lot of shows off the air and put all of that towards Motherland.
Yeah, give them the money. Imagine what they could do with a solid budget, is what I'm saying.
Oh my god. A solid budget and the amount of episodes they need.
Yeah, for real.
And a good network.
Yeah.
No tea, no shade.
Mm-hmm. You know.
No homo. What?
What?
So I guess we can move on from our ranting and the symbols to M, who is the person that has been was staring at Raylla earlier and got the what are you looking at kind of introduction.
So they're in charge of you, Raylla. Welcome.
They're in charge of you. Welcome to the fun, which I think M took that whole thing in stride. I don't think it bothered M in any way, shape, or form. So that's what I love about M. They don't give a fuck.
No, they're super
just
chill.
Put it all out. Yeah. So M introduces themselves, and let's also point out that this is a non-binary actor playing a non-binary character.
Yes.
Which is fucking needed.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
It's incredible.
Once again, we're back to representation. Why is there like only a 5? There's like what? This is the only one that I know of directly, but I think there's 1 or 2 more, maybe. But that just nails the point home that we need way more representation for non-binary.
Are you going to talk about their uniform?
Their uniform's different than the color's different, for one thing.
And if you, in this scene too, we get introduced to like a male witch, and you get to see with Gregorio the way his uniform is situated in comparison to like the female uniforms, and M's uniform is like a combination of the two, which is really cool. Like the way the Velcro goes and things like that, like the colors inside, I think inside versus outside. It's more of a mixture of like the male and female uniforms, which is such a fun detail and what a homage to like this type of character.
And can we go back to the part where this show deserves more seasons because of their attention to detail?
Right, exactly. Like that's what I mean. Like the even like everybody who works on the show is very very good at what they do.
Not only that, I'm gonna take this moment to kind of segue into the wardrobe department.
Oh yeah,
being awesome.
They're awesome.
So can you imagine having all of these amazing people on one set?
Yeah.
And it's being canceled.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What the actual hell?
Well, hopefully not. Well, we shall see.
We're fighting, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so stream the show constantly, guys. Come on.
Stream the show legitimately in whatever way you can, please. Use the hashtags, save Motherland for Salem, and Motherland for Salem when you tweet or go on Insta. So
that is why we are here.
That's why. So, yeah, just that little segue. We're going to go back to
M addressing.
M addressing the Sekhmet company, and they'll have class. They go over they'll have class for some classes together, but most classes within their own specialty. They'll still bunk together as units. And she takes a shot at Raylla's super cool hair, which I found so amusing. Raylla was not amused by. I love it. But Raylla does have super cool hair, and that's been one thing about Raylla that I think everyone notices. I do not doubt that she would have all of these other cadets swooning over her.
She's Lesbian Jesus, of course she does. Hydrate yourself.
Hydrate yourselves. But not that she would give any of them the time of day.
No. But can I just mention with when M essentially says, like, you'll still be bunking as units. So I assume, based on how many people are standing in this room, that a coven essentially is 2 units and a leader, I'm guessing, because there's 7 of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they never fully explain that, but it's like visual clues, I guess, because it was like Gregorio's unit and then like the Bellwether unit, and then M is in charge of. And that's it.
So that's a company.
Yeah.
Also, is Gregorio gonna bunk with?
I don't know.
The ladies?
Who was he bunking with the whole time? Like,
it's my question. Yeah.
Again, this goes back to what did the male witches do off screen? Was he in basic? Well, he wasn't in basic. We didn't see him. Like, was he in male witch basic? How was he in a unit? How did that happen?
Why is he here?
Yeah.
I love him. I just don't know why he's here.
Because like we didn't see him in a unit during their basic training. So the assumption is, like, is this unit from the class like, how did this happen? Because Gregorio and Abigail, from their conversations later, seems like they're in the same age group. So he would have if he went through basic, it would have been at the same time the Bellwethers were going through basic. But we didn't see them in any of Mama Costia's classes. So, like, where was he doing basic? And how is he part of a unit of 2 other women, is my question.
I wonder if they pull certain male witches out of their basic that show potential, like...
Right.
Because as we've heard, the male witches, some of them have a lot more power, but a lot of them are a lot weaker in the work sense than the female witches. So maybe Gregorio is just particularly talented with work. So they're like, all right, well, he can be a support. I see him as almost a support for the unit, as sort of a, I don't know. He's I can't even think of what I'm trying to conceptualize. Thank you, fucking COVID brain. But
no, I'm with you on that. But I wonder, like, the 2 other women he's with, like, were those women part of a unit? They lost a member, and then Gregorio got put. Like, how did he get in that unit? Is what I'm saying. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, I assume those women would have gone through basic training with Mama Costia, and there was no Gregorio there. So how did he get there? Did they just be like, hey, 3rd unit person, you're going... Or maybe... Oh, no, they're rise... I was thinking, like, maybe one unit member is war meat while the others go to war college. But they're, like, rise and fall as units. So the whole unit would have gone to be war meat. So I'm trying to figure out the logistics of how he got here, and it's never explained. Anyone has theories, let us know. Please.
I'm gonna pull this just right out of my head when it just hit me.
Do it.
So the other member of their unit actually fell on their tatas during salva training and broke their neck or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, something had to have happened to that 3rd female in the other unit to where Gregorio got in there. Something had to happen.
That, or they were one of those people that just couldn't. I imagine there are witches that, even though they're in a unit, they had one member that just couldn't do it.
Or, again, not explained. Was there multiple basic trainings going on at the same time? Maybe. Mm-hmm. Was M in their unit and, like, Gregorio's just, like, the extra... Because there's 7. Like, there's an odd man out kind of situation. Was, like, M their unit member, but then got promoted, so then they had to replace, like... Gregorio.
Yeah, could have been that.
Could have been that. But I don't know, because the unit's class was the first class that ever did this unit thing. So it's very hard to, like, suss out.
But also, M seems to know their way around war college already.
Right, so I assume they've been there longer. That's where I'm kind of confused. But
either that or they were orientated since they were going to be the company leader.
Right, that too.
So we don't know.
We don't know.
Another one of our million questions for Elliot.
Yeah, if anyone has any thoughts about that, let us know.
Yeah, please let us know.
Just curious.
Also, I really like that he's here. I love this character.
Gregorio is really great. I enjoy having him in there. He's non-toxic and he's fun.
Preet's humor he's right on. He's his comedic timing. I love it.
It's great.
Yeah, so After M gives him the rundown on how things are going to be, Gregorio comes over and says hi to Abigail, and Tally is immediately, her every boy sense perks up and is like, who is this? Like, related to Abigail. Who is this guy? And she's not subtle about it at all, so
No.
Tally could probably join the spree. But
yeah. Well. Tally's being more influenced by the spree than she realizes she is. Right
yeah, exactly. So we have that little tidbit telling you that Abigail and Gregorio definitely have a history. Mm-hmm. And then M borrows Raylla. And
well, I'm smart. I'm just like, yeah, we need to like clear.
We need to have a chit chat. Like,
here,
we need to. Yeah. I have some things, but also, although a lot of people, when the season 2 trailer happened, thought that there was going to be something between Raylla and M.
How?
And I'm like, how?
I
don't
that
understand.
That was my question. Their first encounter was like, fuck you. Like,
and I think that's why people thought.
But it wasn't like charged with anything other than annoyance. No. Like, this isn't Killing Eve. Like, what are you doing? There was nothing there besides get the fuck away from me. Like no.
The only thing I can imagine is that S is so good at being charming, even when they're being told fuck you.
I think it's more basing than that, really. They're just like, oh,
probably.
2 queer-looking characters. Obviously, they're gonna date. I think that's really what it was, where it was like, there's no chemistry there that alludes to anything other than we'll be friends at some point.
Exactly.
You know, like, we're obviously mad at each other right now because of reasons, but we'll be cool at the end. Other than that,
I just want to address that because I never got that
from the trailer. Yeah, no. From the trailer, I was like, ooh, Tally and Alder. That's what I got out of that trailer.
Thank you!
That was the most charged anything, and I was like, holy crap, I'm shipping Tally and Alder right now. This is something. That was palpable. Whatever's happening with M and Raylla was not. There's no
not at all.
anything happening there. How? Side note, if you do ship them, good on you. They're 2 cool characters. Go for it. I don't get where that started from any of their interactions, to be quite honest.
Just not anything we saw. Like, I could...
There was some fervor. They're like, oh my god, Raylla's gonna forget about Scylla. And it's like, how? Literally every scene with Raylla and every scene with Scylla, there's some hint there that they're still thinking about each other.
Thank you. Somebody brings it up, somebody mentions it, or there's something, the colors, you can tell, like, in the conversation, there'll be something that could relate to Raylla or Scylla with the other one. So, no, guys,
that's not happening at all with M and Raylla. Like, nothing. Like, it's just,
nope.
I will tolerate you at some point is where they're at. But
exactly.
Thank you for addressing it. I was going to bring it up too, to be like, how? How do you get any of that from this? Is my question.
Exactly.
Whatever. No shade to you if you did. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's
Tally and Alder is what I saw from the trailers. It was something.
Exactly. So before M can actually borrow Raylla, we're going to go to Isadora, pulling the sunglasses off of the mushroom head, which is really freaky deaky because right after she does that, the eyes open and they're all human and crap and scary, and Isadora's obviously freaked out by this too. But within moments, the fungus grows over the eyes. So I don't understand how those sunglasses kept the fungus out. It's not like they're sealed.
Well, what I was confused about at first on the rewatch, because Isadora says when she shows the head,
there's nothing human left.
There's nothing human. So I think this is Raylla humanizing part of it because of the link. That's Raylla being the human link in there. Because, at first I was like, or the sunglasses on to hide the creepy eyes. But I think it's because this is Raylla. He's the human link here.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I was so shocked by the eyeballs that
creepy.
I didn't.
It's so creepy.
You didn't go into Oof.
Also, I love how Isadora is freaked out, but like not really. She's still
Yeah,
like
I know.
she's still like standing there calmly, like I need to watch what's happening.
Like
you know,
the
for
face
science.
is freaked out, but
She makes no moves. No
she
muscles.
makes no moves to get away from
yeah,
the freaky
exactly.
thing.
She's just like, but I need to watch.
She is freakishly
What freaks out Isadora
interesting.
is my question. Like, what actually freaks her out? Because she didn't seem super freaked out by this.
Emily, what freaks out Isadora?
Yeah, we have so many questions for you.
So many questions.
Anyway.
But yeah, even the fungus going over the. I'll give props for this special effect.
Yeah, this
that
one was
was
good.
actually pretty creepy. That was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So right after that, we go back to Raylla, who's apologizing about earlier. And then M goes into telling Raylla that they were staring because they wanted to know what all the fuss was about. So I have a feeling that as soon as M found out that they were getting the Bellwether unit, they went into listening to all the rumors mode and figuring out what they were going to have to put up with. Yeah. Because the Bellwether unit was a giant thorn in Anacastia's side as much as they were her babies. So
yeah, now M's taking over, so...
Yeah, so M's kind of the new supervisor of this unit, and they would want to know what they're getting into, because they don't have an inside perspective. All they know is the rumor mill. So it makes sense for M to want to have a one-on-one with Raylla. But as Raylla starts answering M, the mushroom head starts talking to in Isadora's presence, and it speaks in Rael's voice just at the same time as she's speaking. So we're going back and forth between Isadora and the Mushroom Head, which is a great band name, to Raylla and M. And so M says there's only one thing that actually concerns them, and that's before they can even say anything, Raylla brings in Scylla. So the Mushroom Head just said the name Scylla. So one assumes in Isadora's presence.
Yeah.
So
I think that was the big clue. What the hell is that?
Who the hell else is gonna be? Why would the Mushroom Head talk about Scylla? She knows it's connected to Raylla. Right. Therefore, it's obvious that this thing is. To me, it's obvious that this thing is talking as Raylla.
Yeah, because think about it. Isadora's getting only one side of this conversation. She's only hearing what Raylla is saying, not the M stuff. So yeah, the name Scylla, big clue.
Big clue. And I think that's why she says it and not M.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the, yeah. So, Mushroom Head continues to talk. Emma says that they don't want any secrets that will reflect poorly on the company. And Raylla assures M that they're done with secrets, which is the last thing you see the Mushroom Head say with its nasty ass teeth. So, all right, here's your Raylla is super duper connected to the mycelium, and it has freaky deaky powers to colonize an entire ass human.
Yeah, which means that if Raylla can harness the mycelium, it's not just the mycelium wall, but if they can colonize areas of the world, Raylla could control shit out there or do some necrosifying. Yeah, like, there's a lot of possibilities, essentially, with this power.
Possibilities and implications.
Exactly.
Because how does this change the environment if we remember what Isadora was saying about how it changed the weather?
Right, exactly.
So all of this work has a consequence. Remember that too.
Totally. But just goes to show you all there's a lot going on here that nobody really understands. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I feel like the Earth will always try to course correct whatever happens. So
for sure. So
there's balance. Gotta maintain balance.
We'll see what happens to that area of the world if they ever return to it.
Do you have anything else about Creepy Mushroom Head?
Nah. Just go back, and
glad
if
we're
you don't remember
done.
Isadora's face when it starts talking, go back and watch
Oh my
that,
god,
because
go
it's
back and watch
hilarious.
Isadora's
It's
face.
so fucking funny. It's like this mixture of like scientific curiosity, horror, and
And
excitement.
horror. Oh my
It's
goodness.
so good. Go back and watch that. It's amazing.
I want to know if that's
Somebody
the
gift
face
that.
Emily makes when she watches like movies she's really into.
I hope so. It's perfect.
It is.
So after the mushroom talking, we follow Gregorio into the barracks with Tally and Abigail. And, well, actually, Gregorio joins the unit in the middle of like Tally and Abigail having the discussion. And Tally's like, ooh, who is he? And Abigail lets it drop that he was the Cavalier from the Liberal rivalry. So may she rest in peace. And Tally delivers the line, the one that Libba stole, but of course Gregorio was like lurking in earshot, and he barges in to defend himself, and he's like, no one stole me, I am not a possession, which I love that line because it's very like gender role reversally, because like usually women are the possession to men, but here like he's the possession, but he's like, no, I am a whole person. And Tally, throughout this whole conversation where he's hanging out, like Tally keeps like saying stuff, and he keeps messing with her to like get really offended by it, but he's just like kidding, and like Tally the whole time's like ha 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 ha. Like doesn't
He
know
throws her off so hard,
yes,
and I love it.
It's so good.
She needs that in her life.
She does, because think about it. Her last male interaction was with oh god,
Softy voice Garrett.
Yeah, Garrett, who was just all about the Wooing Witches book and just repeating that to her. But Gregorio seems to be like a whole ass person with a personality, and so it's kind of throwing Tally off guard. She hasn't met a man who has a personality yet, because she grew up in the matrivocal compound. But anyway, through this conversation, he basically clears the air that, like, you know, that whole thing with Libba and the Cavalier stealing was basically a misunderstanding, because him and Libba were actually dating for real back then. But because of the way high Atlantic culture works, and you're not really allowed to form attachments, they had to keep that on the down low, essentially. So no one knew about it because it was a secret. And then they have this really cute, pleasant banter about Libba with Abigail, and he mentions, like, he was at the eulogy, or the funeral, and the eulogy Abigail gave was really great, and Libba would have loved it, and it was super sweet. And then poor Tally says the wrong thing again and calls him a male witch. She's like, oh, you're a male witch at War College now. And he's like, hey, you could just call me a witch. Like, why must we gender this? And again, teases Tally. And it's just hilarious. But anyway, you can see there's something happening with the two of them, and it's very cute.
Very cute.
While that's happening, M calls from the other room, hey, Kevin, there's a commanding officer here, like, get the fuck out here. And all of them just, like, fix their uniforms and, like, dash out of the room.
I just have to say something about Gregorio and his, even when he's obviously getting emotional about the eulogy that Abigail gave and thinking about Libba, he still comes back with that joke that he did love watching Petra squirm while Abigail was giving the eulogy.
We all did.
And we all did. And it also makes me appreciate him that much more, because sometimes you have to laugh so you don't cry. And I think Gregorio is like one of the big example, or not example, but a big, he's big on that. I feel.
Yeah,
so
that's definitely his coping mechanism, because that's a big loss for him too, to lose Libba, and you can see both of them are still, him and Abigail are still dealing with that. But yeah, I agree that you get a lot about him as a character in these two little scenes so far.
That he's A, adorable and funny, and B, really has a deep sense of feeling and can, you know, talk about that, but at the same, I feel like he's a very supportive person.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because that highlights something, again, that goes against the rules and that is not common amongst this society, you know, forming a connection with one person that was deep and meaningful that him and Libba did. So he's a lot more like those in the unit than we've seen from other characters, basically.
Exactly. Which is a kind of an important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we're going to go from everyone scrambling to get to their meeting with the CO to the actual CO, which happens to be none other than General Alder herself.
Personal visit from Alder. That's huge. Right?
Yeah, it is huge. You can see, like, companies / covens don't get visited by Alder, but this one's special because Bellwether unit is
like,
there.
What the fuck?
So,
get out here.
it was like, what is going on? So Alder's come to check on her special children. I mean, basically Raylla and Tally at this point. I don't think she's so into Abigail anymore.
She's here to check up on the witch bomb and the woman she's having palpable energy with.
Exactly.
Good lord.
Yep. Very purposeful visit. But as much as it's out of the ordinary, it's also kind of an honor.
Totally.
So to the whole company. Basically, Alder is coming in to give a pep talk and highlights that they're facing the Camarilla now, not the Spree. The Spree's not the enemy to be concerned about at the moment. It's the Camarilla.
Right.
So she gives them a little speech where she says she wants the Camarilla to always be in their minds, driving them to excel and develop the skills they need to destroy them. So this speech, I believe, is for basically the benefit of the Bellwether unit, but Raylla specifically.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's going to make a stop at each member of the unit.
For fairness.
And give them a little talk. So you must be constantly seeking the truth no matter where it leads you. So that's for Tally.
Yeah, she looks at Tally when she delivers that line.
Mm-hmm. So that's, not only is it Tally in general, because that's what she does, but it's a little bit of foreshadowing for Tally as well.
Right, and so I wonder with that line, does Alder know Tally has access to her mind?
That's the question.
Yeah, or did as a biddy, I guess. You know, it's weird.
Feel like she would tell her to seek out the truth no matter where it leads you, if that were the case.
Right, no, I know, that's why it's like a weird, very foreshadowy, but also like, Alder, what were you getting at? You're getting yourself in trouble, girl.
I think it may have something to do with Tally having been the person that was seeking the truth, coming out about the civilians in the truck.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that.
So she's appreciating, and also remember that she was bitified and connected to Alder, so Alder would have been able to see all of that and all of Tally's characteristics and her need to seek the truth.
That's true. I like that.
So Tally is the knower. Mm-hmm. She needs to seek the truth. She sees everything around her. So that's for Tally. To dare to be utterly fearless, not just in facing the enemy, but also what lies inside of you. That's for Raylla. Obvious reasons. Yeah. So Raylla needs to deal with her witch bomminess and get control of it. And also her whole I was in love with the enemy agent thing.
Mm-hmm. Get over it.
Yep. And then she goes on, the will to affect change in the world around you with total control and conscious intention. That's for Abigail. So, control your shit, Abigail. Like, you got a lot of power. You're a bellwether. Your weather work is off the charts, but you need to control how you affect your environment. So, I don't think that's just about her work. I think that's about how she herself, personality-wise, affects her unit and how she leads, mm-hmm. and also how she's affecting other players like Adil and Khalida.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a really good point. Because Abigail has influence over the Tareem, whether she realizes
exactly.
it or not. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because she's become entangled in that whole Tareem situation. Yeah. So there's a lot of different meanings in all of these little tidbits that she gives to the unit. But then she goes on to say, and to keep silent, you spoke the words in your oath, all secrets keep. It is this veil of silence that allows you allows us to do what needs to be done to keep this nation safe. Keep your lips zipped. Don't tell anybody about any of the army secrets. Don't spill the beans. Keep the witch bomb to yourself.
Dude, my big
Don't.
my big takeaway from this whole scene was seek the truth, but keep your mouth shut once you find it.
Exactly.
We're all counting on you. Sarah Alder, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's also her showing, like, you're my special little baby projects. So acknowledge that and know that, yes, you have all of these sisters in your company, but you're also my little special project. So keep the stuff between us.
Yeah, but what a weird speech to give in front of the entire company. You know what I mean? She's like, yeah, you guys have a bunch of secrets with me, but don't tell nobody. And it's almost like a vague threat of like, don't ask them either, because, you know, yeah, it's really weird.
So basically, this goes to further give me pause if I were M.
Yeah.
Listening to this speech, because it's othering the bellwether unit from the company.
Yes. It's almost like Alder's roundabout way of addressing the rumors that are totally going on around base about the unit and being like, yep, there are definitely rumors. Yep, we definitely have shit going on behind the scenes. But everyone here needs to keep their mouth shut, not just these three.
Exactly. Keep your nose out of it. Don't ask them questions. Don't pry into our business. This is between this little group and me.
Yeah.
So yes, she's basically like, it's almost like she's claiming them to the company.
Yeah, she's confirming, there's some shady shit going on with us. But no one's allowed to know about it because I'm Sarah Alder, so everyone keep your mouth shut.
I'm Sarah Alder, no homo.
Yeah.
Except full homo.
I mean, she's talking to Tally, it's fine.
Yeah. So that's Alder's little speech to the whole company and to the unit specifically. There's so many layers to that little chit chat that she just had. Yes. When I say chit chat, I mean monologue. But
yes, that was an Alder monologue.
Diatribe, whatever you want to call it.
They're always so like. I love when Lynn does her monologues because she like takes her time with them and like really emotes through these monologues. It's just. You're just like,
it's almost Shakespearean.
Yeah, no, it is. That's what I mean. It is a full-on monologue where you're just like hanging on every word and she's just driving home all this like emotion and like nuance behind it. It's beautiful.
There's no one with that same intensity in their eyes.
No, well, yeah, having Sarah Alder monologue at you is kind of terrifying.
And she knows it.
Yeah, that's why she takes her time. She's like, keep your mouth shut.
Just letting it sink in.
Yeah, let's sink in. Exactly. Yeah, pretty powerful.
And after that, M wants to know what the hell that was all about.
Fair, very fair.
Yeah, fair. And Abigail takes this moment to kind of forget the humbling and smugly tell M that this is the part where they keep silent.
Right.
Saying, oh yeah, we're cool enough that Alder came and talked to us. We got the power. We're the cool ones. Remember that. I'm a bellwether. Mic drop.
Yeah, also, we got secrets and we're going to keep them from you, leader.
You don't get to know.
Which kind
You're
of
not
sucks
privy.
If you am, but,
It does.
It's part of the army. It's like, again, Alder outranks everyone, so it's like, if you got a secret with Alder, all right, whatever.
Yep, that's just the end of it.
But yeah, frustrating.
Very. Also love we got that lovely throwback of Lynn pacing the room with her hands behind her back.
Yes.
Thing. In front of all the symbolism.
Yeah, that is really beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty much that scene.
Yeah, so while Alder is giving that don't ask, don't tell speech to everyone, meanwhile, in the Necro Lab, Isadora is up there dealing with fungi and spores. And may I say, they're like doing experiments on the fungi. And Isadora and the minions at first are wearing face masks because if you're dealing with an unknown fungi that has spores you can inhale, you should be wearing a face mask so you don't die. So there's some bad scientist stuff going on in some of these scenes. I just needed to point out.
Not the type of mask they're wearing either.
No. Yeah, in a micro lab, like in this scenario, you should be like under like a hood, like with ventilation. Like,
Thank you.
no, this was like they're risking their lives right now unnecessarily. Is my point, and so I'm glad they're okay. But anyway, I think Isadora was too concerned with like mentally thinking about how to crack Abigail and Raylla that she's like forgot her hazardous materials safety protocols, but whatever.
This show is great with symbolism and everything, but not as great with the whole
medicine.
This is how we do science and medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, things are off the rails often. See the infirmary for examples.
Jesus.
Yeah, so they're Isadora and her minion are slicing into the magic mushroom head, and inside the skull, they find a bunch of white fungal hyphae that's like moving around, and the minion comments it looks like the mycelium, and it does. And conveniently, they're in the room with the mycelium, so you can get the visual. And then Isadora puts together that it's the mycelium that's colonizing this ex-Camaria's skull, but it's weird to her that it's colonizing a body halfway around the world through Raylla. So she puts it together that this is Raylla, and Raylla somehow facilitated the mycelium taking over this dead person halfway around the world, which again is crazy because all they know at this time is that the mycelium's in that wall under Fort Salem. So it's weird. And the other weirdness that Isadora points out is that Raylla is the only person who has ever touched the mycelium and walked away more or less unscathed. What do you think she means by that?
Well, some curious folks have touched it and either died or had some very dire consequences, and she's touched it before for science and has had some very dire consequences.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But she's okay.
I think Isadora has touched the mycelium and it went badly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. All right. But I'm curious, though. Scathes them how? I'm wondering how the mycelium would attack other witches and what that would look like compared to what we saw the mycelium do through the witch bomb to the Camarilla. I'm just curious.
It's not going to kill them, obviously, because it's other witches. So I think it would just kind of scare the shit out of them and give them the what for, and maybe give them a little don't ever touch me again. So just like a sort of defensive move.
Yeah, I wonder if it harms them, but not enough to kill them. You know what I mean? Something that's reversible through healing magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
For this scene.
Of course.
So this person that is now the mushroom head, do you think he was a fun guy?
I think he had to have been. Do you think he's more fun now that he's literally fun guy?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if he was one, but he is one now. Now He's a fun guy.
I had to. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's for all the people who love puns out there.
Bad puns.
I'll let my wife listen to it. She loves puns. I do not. I tolerate them for her.
Oh my God, Julie and I need to like chill.
Yeah, she would enjoy that.
Can't believe you don't appreciate my punny self.
I appreciate it. It's not my style of humor. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious. I love it. I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, it's all good. But that fun guy needed to be addressed. So
it did.
And that's kind of pretty much that scene. So key point is that Isadora kind of figured out Raylla not only definitely touched her mushroom when she told her not to, but now Raylla somehow
sounds so wrong when you put it that way.
That's what happened. But somehow Raylla can control it because the head was talking earlier, but also now she's allowing the mycelium to like expand its territory. So very interesting development.
Here's another question, but also what was Isadora doing off screen thing? Did she sit down in front of the mycelium and ask it like why this person and not me?
Yes.
Why didn't you choose me?
No, I think Isadora, we'll see, Isadora has mad acting skills. She whipped out some kind of monologue that was super emotional and paced in front of the mycelium with like a candle in the background and just groveled on her knees and like went to like touch the mycelium but then pulled her hand back as the memory of the last time she was scathed by it and just cursed the gods. And yeah, I think she's jealous of Raylla and very upset that it wasn't her, because I don't think anybody on this planet loves the mycelium more than Isadora.
No.
So this is her OTP is,
herself and the
mycelium. She ships them so hard and she's upset. I think she's
a mycelium simp.
She is. She's like, don't touch that. Don't touch that.
That's mine.
Get away from her. Yeah.
So
yeah, Isadora off screen was definitely crying, why not me, to the mycelium for sure.
Yeah, I can hear a lot of 90s ballads playing in the background.
Yeah, and I think the Necros accidentally were exposed to this, and so they know not to go anywhere near that room when they start hearing, like, I don't even know, Lionel Richie.
Kiss the Rain? I don't know.
Yeah, like old love song. I don't know what year it is. I don't know what music they have, but like,
yeah,
violins. So they start hearing violins. They're like, stay. Just Isadora's in one of her moods.
The Cranberries playing in the background. It always strikes me as the 90s in this because of the way that, like, yeah, the televisions and everything are from before that, but the clothes are so 90s.
It is. I love it. Grungy.
Uh-huh. But we're gonna go back to a scene the scene that most interested me in this entire episode, and that's saying something because there are a lot of really interesting scenes in this episode. But Scylla returns to the scene of the murder at the mall.
Yeah, she sure does.
Which is a huge thing. Huge thing. Not only is she on a reconnaissance mission, she's returning to the scene of her big
crime
attack, her big crime. Because we get the impression this was her one and only actual terror attack.
Yeah, this is probably her biggest spree mission ever.
Her biggest spree mission. I also think that this was also her first time and her first proving herself to the spree.
Me too.
So this is what led to her being put on the Raylla mission.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was her big test, because when we saw her link with Anacostia, we saw the memory, the spree leader that was like giving her the balloon. The language sounded very much like this was Scylla's first mission ever. Or maybe solo mission. Maybe she was doing like little minion-y things, like small vandalizings or like small little things before that, but this was the big solo mission for her.
Right. So
what a fucking mission. Jesus Christ.
I know,
it was probably,
right?
I don't know if this is ever confirmed, but this has to be one of the biggest like death tolls of their attacks ever. You know, for it to be your first mission, like that's huge.
Because the one after this that we hear about was a cruise ship. And yes, a cruise ship can have a lot of people on it, but they're compartmentalized in a way that you could only get a certain amount of people at one time.
Yeah, exactly. It was 1,600 people in Scylla's attack. I can't remember the number. I think they said the number at the cruise ship. I want to say it's like 800 or something. I don't think it was
something like that.
Anywhere near. I think her attack might have been it's the biggest one we know about numbers-wise.
Exactly. And even the attack that was supposed to happen, that Willa switched around, that was a soccer stadium.
There ain't 1,600 people at a high school
women's
soccer team.
Yeah, no one. There's not that many people there.
If this was the U.S. women's national team playing, there'd be
Maybe.
over 1,600 people. But not at this high school. Come now.
No.
There was like 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
What a target.
Exactly.
What was the message there that they were like targeting a high school soccer team? Like what was?
The only thing I can figure is that they're attacking their children now.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. Because, like, the mall is, like, down with your leisurely, like...
Yeah, down with your capitalistic leisurely BS that we allow you... That our toil of our wars allows you to have.
That's what I mean. The luxury of life that you get to live because of us. And then, like, same thing with the cruise ship. You get to go on vacation and we don't. But, like...
Mm-hmm.
what's going on with the soccer game seemed a little odd after those ones.
I think it was them getting desperate to really make a point, and
Yeah.
how do you really make a point? Like, I think it was, we're going to take out kids, but we're going to not do elementary kids because that's a little bit too far,
Yeah.
but we'll do the high school kids.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. The attack on the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Because their next generations are always getting fucked.
Yeah, they just got fucked.
They're getting Avenue F.
They get Avenue F'd every year with the conscription, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, honestly, with that, high school is conscription age, so yeah, that fits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love it.
So, layers. And, you know, a lot of stuff we put in our notes, but when we talk to each other through these episodes, there are a lot of things that just come out that from just discourse. So that was one of those things.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome
to our brains.
Yeah, that's how that happens. So Scylla heads into the mall and she takes a deep breath before she goes inside, and you could tell she is just trying to steel herself for what she's about to see again and experience again. And there's a memorial going on for the attack that she perpetrated, and she gets a view of the main area of the mall, and as soon as she does, she flashes back to that day, and we see the balloon, we see her arriving with the other person's face, or her arriving and then burning her face to the other girl, her walking in, and we see the people jumping from all the balconies. And as she's walking through the memorial, we get this top shot that pans out of her walking among all the little, like, people have set up memorials, and I'm guessing it's where their loved ones fell. So, because they're not like to the sides, they're in the middle of the area. So it'll be like a picture and some flowers. And it's in a spot that's kind of in the walkway area. So you would think that that's where their loved one fell. And she's walking through all of these spots where people died and reliving the attack. Because as much as as angry as she was and as focused on the mission as she was, that affected her. And she's obviously going through that in these moments. So it's regret, not for doing what she thought was right, but for causing so much pain to all these people she sees around her. Their faces are reflecting it. The way that their bodies are positioned reflects it. The way they're gathered together and like family members' hands on other, hugs and all that kind of thing. So it's bringing out the remorse and the guilt from Scylla as she's forced to confront the pain that she's caused. She's seeing mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and significant others, all of these people that she took away from their loved ones. And that's hitting home to her, and I don't think it would have unless she revisited this. So I think it further thaws her a little bit, thaws her kind of certainty that she was 100% right to do what she did. Because like I said, she doesn't regret doing it, she regrets the pain she's caused.
Yeah.
It's a very Scylla thing.
Yeah, Amalia confirmed that at like a Klexicon interview about this scene, because I think when this was happening, a lot of people were misconstruing this scene as like, oh, redemption, she, she regrets this, and it's like, no. Exactly what you said, Scylla doesn't regret this mall attack because she full 100% believes that, conscription is bad and this was an attack on conscription day and that she was making a point and doing something for the greater good. But as we saw when we did the flashback in the season 1 finale, when she was getting the balloon for this mission, there was that scene where somehow there was screaming that was happening, and you saw that Scylla was very shaken by that, and she had this guilt weighing on her when she's in the elevator leaving with the balloon, because she knew she was about to go cause a lot of suffering for a lot of people. And the suffering is the thing that gets to Scylla. And that's what we're really seeing in this scene, is that she doesn't regret the action that she was doing in the name of the spree. She regrets all the suffering it caused, because ultimately she doesn't want to do that. But at the time, that felt like, okay, this is the only way forward to make the suffering for witches stop, because we feel this too. You have to feel what we feel to empathize with us, which, as we'll see, is not what happened. But I feel like that was Scylla's rationalization at the moment. But she still is very much human in this moment, because she can feel the sympathy for all the suffering she really didn't want to cause, through the action the spree essentially was trying to have her do with the mall attack. So,
yes, just like with any human, if you have a distance from the victims of your crime, you don't have to empathize with them as much. But once you see the results and what the damage you've left behind on a human level, you're going to start feeling that empathy if you have that capability. And Scylla absolutely has the capability. So
yeah, she's not a sociopath. She's not a psychopath.
No.
She's none of those paths. She's, a girl that thought she was doing what was right. And I think in this moment too, she definitely empathizes with all the people mourning their loved ones, because she's been mourning the death of her parents this whole time too. Like,
exactly.
So it's highlighting again that she's human, at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly. She even people put in impossible situations, you'll be surprised what you do.
Yeah, it's
quite honestly
partially survival, partially she was young with no life experience,
mm-hmm.
and the life experiences she had up until that point were traumatizing and horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not a far stretch to see where she ended up with the spree, but I think the main takeaway, like you said, is she doesn't regret the mall attack. She regrets, to a certain degree, or at least empathizes with the suffering that was a result of that, the collateral damage.
Scylla might have grown up among civilians, but she didn't grow up with civilians.
No.
She grew up as as someone who was hiding from everyone.
And I think in her mind, she sees them as other.
Exactly.
So it's easy to take away, again, when you're in that position where you're indoctrinated into a group that's viewing other human beings as others. In that othering, part of the really horrifying process of that is dehumanizing the other group. So because of that, it's easier to rationalize something like this attack, where it's like, well, to a degree, I don't think they're human like I am. So what's a couple of broken eggs, right?
The whole and the whole part of one of the big points of the show is this goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
as we're going to see in a minute, how the civilians view the witches, like
exactly. Yeah. Like all of this goes both ways.
Exactly.
Like this is the most human thing ever, is for us to the most human thing ever in this show is the fact that everyone is othered, but they're also doing the same damn thing.
Right, everybody's really
to each other.
The same at the end of the day, but we just find our reasons to form groups, and this tribalistic mentality that's like, well, we have to protect ourselves and destroy the other. And that's the whole point of the show, really.
Yep. Thank you. And good night. Except for Shane steps up to the podium. Boy, this guy, it ticks every single box that I have for a dude that I would not be able to exist in the same room with.
Oh, it keeps getting worse the more we see him.
It gets worse and worse and worse. So when we're first introduced to him, he steps up at the podium and he starts speaking about how the powers that be, need to know that they're demanding justice, and we demand that the monsters responsible for this be held accountable. And you can see Scylla's face. She's trying to be part of the crowd and nodding along, and she's really bad at it because she's having feelings, and also she's uncomfortable in this entire situation.
She's standing in front of an anti-witch fire and brimstone propaganda speech and trying not to lose her shit, because this is everything she hates.
Exactly.
This is her biggest fear. This is what she hates. And so, yeah. Ugh.
So think about the inner conflict there, because Scylla's feeling guilt for the pain that she's caused, and then this guy freaking steps up to the podium and reinforces everything that the spree has indoctrinated her with, in that civilians are fucking awful.
Yeah, no, this is literally the reminder of why she did the mall attack.
Exactly.
Like, this is why she did it. She's like, oh,
so
yeah.
It's got to be one of the most conflicting and, like, cognitive dissonance type moments.
But to Scylla's credit, I feel like in this moment, she easily could have been like, oh, yeah, I'm fighting a bigger evil. That's why I did it. So my action was totally justified. But she still does struggle with the suffering, and she chooses to feel it rather than turn it off, which I think is a big thing, and it speaks to her character a lot. That she very easily could have been like, whatever, I was right, but she chooses to process it like a healthy person. So
yeah, like, she actually takes it on board, and she sees that the truth is more complicated. She's emotionally mature to the point where the truth, and I think that's just a natural thing that some people are born with, that the truth is more complicated, because she could have honestly just seriously been a true believer all along if given her circumstances. But I think that her natural inclination is to think through rather than just go with the emotion. And also the fact that Raylla had an effect on her, softening her on an emotional front.
Yeah, Elliot definitely says that. So this is partially Raylla's impact, because Scylla now has to process feelings, which she didn't have to do that before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's in a different headspace to receive this speech that otherwise just would have reinforced the spree mission for her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, she has grown. This is growth.
This is growth for Scylla, and we like it. So you see her doing a relatively good job of acting like she's upset about what Shane's talking about and the things going around her, and no one else can know what she's actually thinking. And then Bonnie, Shane's wife, finds Scylla, or Justine. Scylla, can we talk about this name choice? Why?
I love it.
Justine. It's so Scylla, though.
I love it.
It's like, what? Did she just come up with that on the spot, or did she think about that? Did she, like, somewhere in the past think, what would my freaking, like, undercover name be?
No, I think she met some basic bitch a long time ago named Justine, and she's like, you know what? That's such a under the radar kind of woman. I'm a Justine now. Don't look at me too closely.
Exactly.
I can't go around flaunting my super Greek name everywhere. So Justine.
I like that headcanon. Okay. There's just not a lot of Justines.
Or, you know what? Willa didn't trust her. She's like, I don't trust you. Your name's Justine. You know what? No more flying solo completely for you anymore. You are Justine.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because Willa met a basic bitch once named Justine. It stuck.
I love it.
So listeners, you let us know what you thought. Where did Justine come from?
Yes, let us know.
Let us know. Because, like, okay, we'll go on this further, but Justine does a lot of basic bitch stuff going forward.
She does! Her clothes are basic bitch, too.
Right, she drinks wine, like, she's basic bitch.
This is a really great point. This is really great time to point out the difference in costuming between Justine and Scylla. Very different costuming choices.
Super different.
Because if you remember when she was talking to Willa on the couch before, she's got the flannel going on.
Blazers?
Yeah, she's got all this. But then in this scene, she's got this little blue floral type cardigan on over. She's got the pastel situation.
But they're still Raylla and Scylla colors.
They're still Raylla and Scylla colors.
That's her headspace.
Exactly.
However, Justine tones down the big bi energy that Scylla radiates.
No big bi energy in the vicinity. More kindergarten teacher. Came from Bible school energy.
Yes, I mean, yes, because that's the group she's trying to infiltrate. So, yeah.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah.
She's trying to be a normie, and she's succeeding.
The more I think about this, the more I think Willa did not trust her with this. And she's like, listen,
no,
we're gonna talk about Justine right now. And like, here's your wardrobe. I already bought the clothes.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and yeah, because Scylla left the frickin', I mean, I assume she had some stuff stowed somewhere along the way, like her clothes. But where would she get Justine's clothes?
No, I think she...
Oh, yeah, it was totally
Willa took her shopping. And, like, she let Scylla pick out an outfit. She's like, you were not wearing that blazer.
At Sears? Because it existed then
right. Yeah, Sears,
in this world.
And Willa's like, no, we're going into the teacher cosplay section. That's where we're getting your outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think this reeks of Willa collar.
Like, Scylla automatically goes for, like, the juniors/men's department, and Willa's like, no.
No, Willa's like,
we're going into the women's department.
You're not dressing for my daughter. You're dressing for something else.
Exactly. I love this headcanon. I want this scene to happen.
It definitely happened. Elliot did not give it to us. There isn't time. There wasn't time. I don't blame you, but I love it.
Yeah, we need to have a talk about all the missing scenes.
Yeah, if anyone wants to write us that fan fiction of Willa and Scylla shopping, please send it to us.
Yes. All of the clothes that Willa makes Scylla put back.
Oh my god, the banter would be so great. I love it.
And I'm like, because I could see her standing at this rack and just like holding this shirt and kind of like feeling it and being like, Raylla would love this.
Willa's like, girl, put that back. She just puts it on the return rack. She's like, get back in there.
I love it. Scylla's over here picking up leather jackets.
That's what I mean. Like, her instincts are just, it's not Justine. So there was a conversation that happened with Willa where she had to be like, listen, girl, you can't be you.
Yeah, exactly. So, Bonnie... Our new character Bonnie shows up, and she's Scylla immediately goes into like happy friend mode. So she switches from, you know, all being emotional and shit to, oh my god, hi! And they're like holding hands.
Yeah, Bonnie's lonely. So Scylla is amping up the friendliness.
She is pouring it on. And while they're talking, someone steps up to the podium and starts speaking. Guess what? It's Anacostia.
Woo!
Who is, up there to give her story, quote unquote. And Scylla turns and looks at her like, what the fuck, bish? Like, what are you doing here?
Scylla's already having, like, the worst day ever.
Yeah, she has to wear these clothes. She has to be Justine and super friendly.
At the Murder at the Mall.
She has to listen to Shane. She's in the Murder at the Mall. We're the only mall in the universe.
Yeah, the mall.
So Anacostia is telling a story like she is a relative of a survivor, the daughter of people who were Scylla's victims, basically. So she's using part of her story with her parents and putting it in the place of someone who would have lost their parents in the mall attack.
Yes.
So she's pulling on actual emotions concerning her parents to give a convincing, like, victim speech as someone left behind. So you see tears stream down her face. Thank you, Demetria, for making us have feelings.
She took acting classes with Isadora, obviously.
Apparently. And at this point, Scylla crosses her arms, and she's getting sort of, like, mad about it.
Hey, yeah, she's like, what are you doing here? What the fuck?
Yeah, like, she's protecting. So her crossing her arms is a body language move of you're protecting yourself. So she's protecting herself, and she's pissed off.
Yeah, because she's
at
like,
the same
great,
time.
Army's here. Wonderful.
Exactly. So, and she's got Bonnie all up in her shizzles over here. Basically like, oh, it's okay if it affects you. And I can just imagine Scylla in her head's going like, shut up.
Yeah, she's like, I'd like to slap you. But
you have no idea. So, as Anacostia is giving her speech, she stares at Scylla while saying, she's talking about the witch that committed the crime, and she's staring at Scylla saying, is there anything human left in her? So, Anacostia has been watching Scylla this whole time.
Yep. She's like, I see you.
She's not busy since there's no basic training going on. So she's made Scylla, tracking Scylla her mission and watching her.
Yeah. So, yeah, Dimitri talks about that in After the Storm and basically was like, yep, Anacostia had this shit in mind the whole time when she let Scylla go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Catch and release, like
Catch and
Willa
release.
said.
That's, yeah, literally.
Literally. So is there anything human left in her? Anacostia has been watching Scylla. She's seen her in the mall when she came in. And I imagine this would make Scylla feel super vulnerable that Anacostia is there. And that she didn't figure out that Anacostia released her and was the fetch. I don't know how they didn't put those two together, but...
There's a scene later where Willa's like, oh, is that what she was doing? And it's like, girl, you heard Scylla's whole ass story of how she got out of the dungeon. How did no one connect those dots?
Thank you,
You guys have
guys!
spent so much time saying the army's devious, never trust them. But that move was totally trustworthy. Anacostia just letting Scylla go. Come on now.
For two super smart women, y'all being dumb.
I know. That, again, they're terrible spies. That's what the solid.
Good lord.
Yeah.
So, after this little speech by Anacostia, she's off looking at some memorial stuff, and Scylla approaches her, and they start to discuss the fact that the fetch was Anacostia. Duh. She's been following her all along.
Duh.
And Scylla thinks that this is part of Anacostia's quest to save her. And she tries to play off like she feels nothing about the attack and is feeling no remorse, but Anacostia calls her out and says that the reason she's there, so it started with her wanting to save Scylla, but the more she's watched Scylla over the weeks, she realizes that Scylla's on a new mission and is infiltrating this movement, and she wants to know why. And once Scylla kind of confirms that it's not just this movement, and Anacostia cottons on to Scylla and the spree thinks that it's the Camarilla. She's like, well, I want in. To which Scylla is like, bullshit. Like, no.
Yeah, no.
I'm not working with the army. That's not your motive. You're not here all by yourself. There's something going on. She's not trusting that Anacostia is there on her own volition because of what she's been seeing with the army and Alder in particular that's been giving her pause.
Yeah, but also, like, Anacostia is, again, the big rule follower, so, like, I totally am with Scylla on this, where you're like, you can't be going rogue, because you're Anacostia. Anacostia would never break rank. So it is very weird.
It's very weird, and it's not... I wouldn't believe it either, if I were Scylla, so...
Especially when you just found out that Anacostia, like, tricked you and was tailing you. And so, like, Anacostia's not giving her a big reason to trust her at this moment, to be fair. No.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that Anacostia knows that, but she's not going anywhere. Anacostia is just as stubborn as Scylla is. So
I love it.
Which is why it's amazing. This is the birth of Quarterhorn.
Quarterhorn's the best.
They're bro TP. Freaking love them together.
Love them.
It's amazing. And this is the point at which Anacostia is saying that there are things that don't sit right about her, about Alder's decision-making in the army in general, particularly the decision to just throw Scylla away. But they don't get any further with that because Bonnie and Shane approach Mr. and Miss... I don't know. These two just give me such Trump supporter vibes.
I know. Yeah. No, for many reasons.
So many reasons.
It's like the typical like, I immediately got the vibe from them, like, it's much more apparent, I'll get to it there later, never mind, but it's very much like a conservative relationship with the power.
Precisely.
Patriarchal power dynamics, we'll put it that way.
Yes.
I know. I hate it. It's gross.
Misogynistic bullshit because vulnerability and need to be the macho dude.
It's gross.
Whatever. Everything that the witches are not about.
Right.
So Bonnie and Shane walk up and Scylla starts to introduce Anacostia, but she realizes that she doesn't have an undercover name.
She's like, well, I was only told I'm Justine. Who the fuck are you?
yeah, like, who the fuck are you? And then Anacostia fills in the blank with Amelia.
I love it.
I want to know who picked that name. That's a better name, but also it's really close to Amalia.
That's where I think it came from, to be honest.
I think it did too. I just want to know who picked it.
Right.
So Bonnie surmises that these two know one another, and that's confirmed by Anacostia. They've seen each other around at rallies the past couple of weeks. And then Anacostia says, feels like we're kindred spirits.
I know. They actually are, which is why it's funny.
They are, but she's fighting it because...
She's just trying to fuck with her the whole time doing it. It makes it really funny.
It's so great. She's like picking at Scylla, and Scylla's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So, Anacostia's like, this is a lot. Who needs a drink?
Yeah. I think that was the most truthful line in this whole scene.
It was, let's get out of the murder mall and go have a drink with these people that are our enemies.
Yeah, let's dine with the enemy, shall we?
Exactly. Let's be spies.
So fucking funny.
So I love that Anacostia and Scylla combined are better spies than the entire spree.
And the army aren't great spies either. They suck. But yeah, the two of them together are very effective, as we'll come to see.
Yeah, and it somehow Anacostia cancels out Scylla's horrible spyness.
Yeah, it's like they share the brain cell enough to where their missions are successful.
Right, exactly.
It's great.
So, that's the follow-up to Murder at the Mall. The sequel, Regret at the Mall.
And Anacostia wondering if there's a different way to go about things rather than just spree versus army. That was my big takeaway.
Exactly.
And I think that plants a seed with Scylla.
It does. And she actually addresses that Scylla's mission has changed.
Yeah, exactly. So they're both in different mindsets, again, to interact. So I love it.
Instead of being at cross purposes, they're now running parallel.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the perfect way.
So, which is coming together to defeat the ancient enemy.
The real enemy, which is white men.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, thank you. All along.
Yeah.
It's been the white men.
I know. I love that. Thank you, Elliot. Thank you.
Crusty old white men.
Yeah. But anyway, so we leave the anti-witch hate and the birth of Quarterhorn and go over to War College, where Tally runs into Penelope, and as Penelope hangs up the phone with her dad, and she seems really upset after this conversation. So Tally, again, as we saw from the beginning, feels very empathetic towards Penelope's whole situation. So she tries to bond with her and is like, yeah, my mom isn't all rah-rah army either. I totally get that, but it'll get better. I promise it'll get better. And so you see the start of them kind of forming this bond. Penelope kind of takes this and walks away, and they part, and Tally heads over to, I guess, the first War College class we're going to see.
Mother tongue.
Which is Mother tongue lesson. And interestingly, when we first get the shot of this classroom, Adil's in there at the front row all by himself. And Abigail sits next to him. And there's some head smiling and hard eyes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Which must happen for a really long time, because 1.0001 seconds later, the teacher comes into the room and the entire class is full. So, explain that one to me.
Yep.
Okay, sure. And the teacher busts in the door, and it's this lanky white dude with long hair and glasses, and he introduces himself as Channing Grafton. So, this is Mama Costa's Beltane man. So she...
And I'm like, what?
Right, Mama Costia was ripping off the pants of this dude?
Nerd! This nerd, I love it!
This dude?
This is who she was into!
So into, she was, animalistically ripping the pants off this man.
Now, was she so into him, or was he just there?
I don't know. I feel like Mama Costia has mad game. How did this happen? How?
Okay, the only thing I can figure is that
how?
On the outside, he doesn't seem to be her type, but he is a mother tongue expert.
This is true. God.
If you get my drift.
Yeah, I don't want to go there, but you can go there if you want to.
I'm just like horrified.
I'm horrified by this, but anyway, so this is apparently one of Mama Castia's types. Just throwing that out there.
Hey, I don't blame her. Nerdy people are hot.
Hey man, I'm glad she had a good time, but I love that they call back to Beltane and brought
I love it. It's so great.
That's so funny.
So great.
But yeah, he's still hanging around at War College. And
so they see each other.
And I will leave it at that because I don't want to think about that. But anyway,
You guys come torture Theora with your headcanons for Channing Grafton.
No! No! Why?
Because I have some Isadora in me. I have to torture you.
Send me more things about the dashing dream soldier that Tally keeps dreaming about. But anyway, so
I love that every time you even mention that person, you stroke your hair.
We'll get into that a lot. You'll hear me talking about dashing shoulder a lot. Anyway, but I'd rather have Channing headcanons than Porter ones. So you know what?
Oh, good Lord, let's not.
Let's throw that out there. Send the Channing things. I'd rather have that anyway. He's at least useful. And he's fun in this scene, to be honest. So he, anyway, is the mother tongue instructor, as we mentioned. And he mentions that he personally asked Adil to join, because I thought it was weird Adil was there. I'm like, why is Adil attending War College class? But he asked him to come in because, uniquely, Adil grew up speaking mother tongue, which is not common for the American witches. So I think that's highlighting how the Tarim, potentially, are very much more in
touch with the ancient.
Thank you. Yeah. Exactly. They're more traditional, I guess, in the sense of like what witchery looked like way back when. And Elliot talks about mother tongue in the After the Storm. Very interestingly, he said this is a real language they used called Miniche, I think. Miniche, I think is what it's called. So it's a real language, and it sounds very harsh and very powerful. And the purpose of it, in the context of this show, is he wants to demonstrate that witches were the first humans to speak in this like earth they're creating. So they were the first group of people to have language. And so in this world, mother tongue is the root of all languages in this world. So it's really cool that the Tarim grow up speaking this like the OG language. So it's very interesting. And so he asked Adil to come because he's literally the only native speaker. That's why he's here. And he explains that nowadays in like American culture, and I assume the other cultures outside of the Tarim, like mother tongue is used in more formal settings. So here, like we've seen the Hague use it when Alder goes to talk with the other witches, or the High Atlantics use it in like formal settings. So it's not common language. It's more so like formal, and again, like a tie to tradition kind of thing. And he gives this demonstration of mother tongue by aggressively talking to Tally, who's like trying to like translate what is happening as he's rapid fire like speaking to her in mother tongue. And at the end of it, Tally's like, wait, I got like every fifth word.
You lost me at the end. I don't know why that line always sticks in my head, but it does. This is the way that Jess delivers it. You lost me at the end.
Tally got the hey you at the beginning and then got completely lost because it's so fast. And anytime you're learning a new language, it's so hard to translate when you're not used to it. So you're just like, wait, slow down. But Adil, the native mother tongue speaker, clarifies he's challenging you to a duel. Which, what a way to start a lesson. Challenging one of your students to a duel. And Channing clarifies, well, there's no direct English translation. The closest is right of proxy. And this is a term that will come up later on in the season. And very briefly, what that means, right of proxy, is essentially it's this legal term when one person is authorized to stand in the place of the other in a legal proceeding. So this happens in legal proceedings where like the primary person can't be there. They'll have a proxy, a person that can stand in for them in this legal proceeding kind of thing. So that's what this was. And then he goes on to talk about mother tongue and explains that, the reason we're all here is because there's certain work that can only be done in this language. And the whole time Raylla's just like rolling her eyes because she's over school. But, the thing about certain work you can only do in this language perks everybody up, and they're like, okay, yeah.
Raylla and her super cool hair are too cool for school.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. She would be that person sitting in the back rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
She was in civilian school, I bet you money.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure she was. Raylla's like, when can I go play sports? I don't want to be here.
Yeah. Can I go badly play lacrosse, please?
Also, like, imagine them in school, because, like, what does it matter? I'm going to be in the army, so
exactly.
Why would I pay attention? Yeah, there's no motivation there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
None.
Anywho, so that's Channing. Mama Costume's Beltane Man, and Mother Tongue.
Holy shizzles. From that fun time with rite of passage and mother tonguing. Didn't mean that in a dirty way, but it happened anyway, so I apologize.
No, I love it. They were up there mother tonguing.
That's gonna be the new way I say things. I'm using that from now on.
Yeah.
Accidents happen. Sometimes they're good. We're gonna go to Alder on her way to her Hague meeting, but Tally stops her along the way. She's like all awash with like, I don't know how to describe it. She's just like, she's Tally in her element. She's happy. She's like happy Tally.
She's just full of empathy in this moment.
She is full of Tally vigor.
Yeah.
And empathy. So she stops General Alder to ask if she can tutor Penelope to get her ready for basic, because if you think about it, Penelope hasn't known that she's a witch her whole life, and so she never got any of the basic stuff. Like, you imagine that the moms have taught their daughters some basic work, like Raylla's mother taught her.
Yeah, and just to segue really quickly, like, I think Tally relates to this too, because while Tally had her mom, and she obviously probably learned some kind of work on the matrifocal compound, she never had that, like, connection to the army, because her mom was just like, no. So, like, Tally was left to wonder about this other part of her that could be being a soldier, but, like, Penelope really had nothing at all. So I think Tally kind of empathizes with her situation based on her.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And she wasn't given the history of witches or anything.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Tally wasn't either. I think Tally had to learn that on her own, like reading Reverie and her little blanket fort.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that Tally sees in Penelope that are her own experiences.
Yeah.
And that's what motivates her, along with her empathy, to ask Alder if she can tutor Penelope and get her ready for basic. To which she gets the blessing to do so, and Tally is pleased as punch. And she's just like, when she's just standing there after Alder gives her blessing, I'm like, is anybody gonna move? Tally, are you gonna like?
No. She's just like.
Is there something else?
There's so much more, but we're not gonna talk about that right now.
She's just gonna stand in Alder's presence and bask.
They're both basking.
Yeah,
it's mutual.
And then there you go. So then Tally does step aside, and Alder goes into her meeting, and she gets another surprise because.
I know.
Her arch nemesis is there in the form of a tiny human named Khalida.
Itty-bitty Khalida, the Alder Destroyer.
The Alder Destroyer, the only one that can take her down. She's not happy at all to see Khalida in here, because she knows what that means. Khalida's been talking to the Hague folks behind her back.
Yep.
So Khalida's not having any of Alder anymore, and is saying, I'm going to go tour these other countries that are in the Hague Coalition, and I'm going to see where we're going to settle. And General Alder is so not here for that either, and says, well, I'll get you a security detail. And Khalida's like, oh, no. I have arranged for protection from General Sharma, who offered.
Oh, sure.
And that's Alder's other thorn in her side. General Sharma.
Yeah, she's like, great, you guys been speaking and now you're ganging up on me? Great.
Exactly. So Sharma is standing there looking like the cat that got the mouse.
She did. She's like, ha, Alder, finally
Yeah,
bested your ass.
exactly. She's like gloating silently. And Alder tries to get her to think twice, because I do genuinely feel that Alder thinks the American military is superior, and that any security detail that she sends is going to be better than anything General Sharma has.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
it's a way to keep her hand in, but at the same time, she does believe that her people are superior.
Yeah, it's definitely double-sided. You know, there's two motivations there, like you said. And I think part of her reasoning for wanting to send the superior military is the Camarilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Camarilla, she doesn't trust anyone else.
Right.
But people that she picks.
Exactly.
So she would have handpicked these people, like they handpicked Bridie to be the bodyguard for. We saw how competent Bridie was.
Exactly. I think it's twofold, this motivation. I need my hand in the pot, and then also I think the Camarilla is already, they're trying to wipe out the Tarim, so she's scared too of them getting wiped out.
Not only,
and she can't control Khalida, you know.
Exactly. Not only are Khalida and Adil the last part of the last of the Tarim, and she wants to protect them from that standpoint of their witches from this ancient, sect of witches that we need to protect. It's also that they hold these songs that have never been heard by the outside world, and it's protecting witchhood in general from the Camarilla. So This is very, very personal for Alder. This is not just that Khalida's defying her. This is very personal from the standpoint of Alder is the protector of all the witches in her mind. Like, she needs to protect witchhood, period.
Yeah, and the Tarim are definitely set up as a symbol of witchhood. They speak the first language the witches ever spoke, like all this stuff. So to wipe out the Tarim would be a huge power move for the Camarilla.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's symbolic in a lot of ways, like you're saying. That's a great point.
Exactly. It would demoralize Alder to a large degree.
And witchhood.
Yeah. So it'd be a huge loss. Emotionally and symbolically, and also a demoralizing situation for the witches to be in, because the Camarilla somehow survived after Alder thought that she eradicated them. They've been thriving this whole time. They've obviously got, more money. They've probably got more money than all the Waltons combined at this point. So they've got like Bill Gates money.
Yeah.
All right.
Remember originally when they were founded, the Camarilla was funded by literal kings.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is a group that comes from ancient money.
So there are a lot of really powerful people across the world.
Yeah, and they're politically powerful. Think about it. Came from a king. So politically powerful group.
So you have to think about it from that aspect. And it makes the witches look smaller as a force, because the Camarilla has also been a lot smarter about how they're using their PR.
That's going to be the huge thing, yeah.
So that's a huge thing to keep in mind. So they're very good at fear-mongering, the Camarilla.
Fear is unfortunately powerful.
Very. It's I think it's one of the most powerful human emotions.
Yeah, and fear is easily turned into hate, and that's what Willa pointed out in the last episode. She's like, hate is a disease. You got to find patient zero where this hate is coming from. So
exactly. Yeah. So this scene doesn't seem as significant as it really is, but there are a lot of things going on under the surface that if you really dive into it, you see that it's not just Khalida saying, well, I'm going to go find out where we're going to settle. It's, to Alder, this is Khalida putting herself and her brother in danger for defiance purposes, and for her not liking Alder and being around Fort Salem.
Yeah, and for Khalida too, to stick with their pacifism that
Mm-hmm.
Alder threatens, and she's seeing that threat through her brother, because her brother is starting to like use language that's
Exactly.
like, oh, I'm coming around to see where the army's coming from, and I think that threatens Kalita, and in her mind that threatens the Tarim, that threatens their tradition. So yeah, it's there's a lot of undertones to what's going on in this little exchange.
So it's we come back to, again, they're both acting on their fears.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
So it's we're back to fear as the motivator. Fear is a great motivator.
I feel like we say it a lot. There's a lot more to the scene than just these 3 lines.
I know, right?
That's the theme.
We do. This is the whole theme of the show. It should be the tagline. There's a lot more to every scene than you think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Think about the scene. There's a lot there, really.
Mm-hmm. So Alder gets a little miffed about Kalita turning down her offer, but they move on to talk about how the witch plague does not harm civilians, so it's genetically or engineered, we'll say, as a weapon of witch genocide.
Yep. That's important.
So that's a very striking statement that you should remember. And then Alder also informs them about the Camarilla using witch vocal cords as a form of using the witch's work. And everyone is shocked and they reach for their throats. Like, oh my God. And especially, we need to name the British lady, because I can't just keep calling her the British lady. So, guys, help us name the British Hague lady.
General Fanny. No, someone else come up with another one.
You're fired with names, fired. Okay?
Sorry, I have a different name on my mind. But anyway, what I love about this scene is that when everyone does the throat grasping, I think it's so significant because, think about it, nobody else in that room, aside from really Alder, has actually faced the Camarilla. So I think till everybody else in that room, the Camarilla's just been this like boogeyman they've heard stories about. And so it just, their like childhood boogeyman stories just became real, like in real time. So it's, what a shocking thing to learn, you know?
And here's where we have the tie into the title of this episode, because British lady says it's an abomination. Yeah. That the Camarilla are using their own vocal cords against them. I agree.
It is.
So
I love that they hate witches so much, but they're not above stealing their work.
Absolutely.
Explain that cognitive dissonance to me.
Thank you. We hate you so much that we're going to take what makes you a witch and use it against you.
Right.
So we become
witches by proxy.
Witches by proxy. I'm trying to think of the word that I'm trying to think of is like a corrupted version of
they
witch.
say a bastardized version of their word.
Bastardized version. That's a pretty good.
But I just love it because, again, back to conservatism in general, it's just the cognitive dissonance of like outwardly vocalizing how much you hate this thing, but very secretly, or not so secretly, you're doing the thing that the group you hate is doing.
Exactly.
And it's just like you're acting as a witch by using witches' work, but you hate them. So it's like
the hypocritical nature of all of this just blows my mind.
Right. It's a power thing. That's all this is. They're jealous that the witches have power and it's only women, so all the men are butthurt about it.
Jealous and jealous and afraid.
Yeah. But they're like,
if
I get the opportunity to steal your powerful work, I will totally do that. And that's totally fine. That's not being a witch, but like, come on.
Because I am a human and I am simply using your power against you.
Right. The cognitive dissonance is wild.
Don't like it.
I hate it. And it is a real thing that people do. That's why I hate it more.
So I love this scene because of that aspect where they find out about the vocal cords and they're just like freaking shocked. And then she uses that opportunity, Alder does, to speak to them very directly and very sincerely and also very intensely, driving home the fact that she's going to root the Camarilla out and destroy them in her country, and is asking all of these generals to do the same in theirs. Can I count on you to do that? Like, I know we have our differences, and you guys don't like me a lot of the time, and I kind of lord over you or whatever in your mind, but this is more important than all of our differences. We have to eradicate the Camarilla and rid the earth of their blood.
Yeah, and it's such a good leader move because remember, when Alder walked into this room, all the Hague members were divided about and bickering about the Tarim stuff. And now she's like, hey, there's a bigger enemy. We need to put our differences aside to unite against this enemy. And this is paralleling what Willa and Scylla are trying to do.
Exactly.
So
she kept that card of the vocal cords in her back pocket until this point, where it was very useful for her to pull that out, shock them, and then make them kind of realize that it's not about the petty shit that's been going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is real and this is deep. This is actual Alder's fear of the Camarilla. And I think this is the only thing that really gets Alder afraid.
Yeah, like you could hear it in her voice when she's talking about this. Like you hear she's being really, really resolute about like trying to get them to band together, but you hear the fear in her voice.
Exactly.
But again, what is this? This is fear uniting all the witches, right?
Exactly.
Back to the fear uniting people. So it goes both ways. Good guys and bad guys. You know, fear is what's uniting everybody.
Yeah, and it's like who's good and who's bad at this point. You kind of see like everybody has a point, but everyone's motivated by the same things, but in a warped way for some. Like the Camarilla are definitely not the good guys. I'm just gonna no.
Guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. It's showing you that fear can be used to motivate good guys and bad guys and it unites people. You know, and they obviously have a hatred of the Camarilla because the Camarilla is trying to kill them. And so it's the same emotions are driving the opposite groups but for different, it's being twisted differently. I'll say that.
Yeah. For me, you can make an argument for everyone in this show not being a terrible person, except for certain members of the Camarilla that we meet. So, there you go.
Yeah, so that's the Hague. And
coming to Alder for once.
I think they were coming there to brag.
They were.
Like, we got Khalida, and then Alder's like, the
also to pick up Khalida.
Yeah. In front of Alder, though.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a power move from the Hague against Alder, and it took a turn.
Sort of backfires.
It took a turn. But, so while that's all going on, Abigail and Adil are occupying themselves with themselves. So they're making out somewhere until Adil gets a little bit distracted, and Abigail calls him out for being distracted. And he reveals to Abigail that, what's on his mind is the fact that he's going to leave soon because Khalida wants him to go on this world tour. She was just discussing with the Hague. But he isn't sure if he's going to go because you could see that he's conflicted. Like, he wants to stay with Abigail, but, like, he's been charged with being Khalida's, guide through life or protector as her brother. And so he's a little conflicted. Like, I'm choosing my family or do I want to stay with you, Abigail, kind of thing. And Abigail's a little sad by this, but it's like, yeah, I guess I get it or whatever. And then for some reason pivots the conversation to Gregorio.
Yeah, what? I think it was like a distraction.
What a distraction. She's like, so you met Gregorio? Like, what? He's like, okay, yeah, let's bring up your ex. That's so weird, Abigail.
I think in Abigail's mind, there was never any fucking chance in hell of her being with the safety school with a penis. And so it never entered her mind that he would be jealous about that, really. It just entered her mind that, he has a friend now, so maybe he'll stay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's more like, hey, you met that other dude witch that can do work.
Like, you got dude pro time.
Yeah, exactly. But that's how Adil takes it. He's like, yeah, girl, what the fuck is a cavalier? That sounds intimate.
And I want to know if Gregorio told him all of this because he was trying to be like a little naughty and sowing some seeds. Like, did Adil just hear this, or did Gregorio go, I'm gonna fuck with Abigail?
Like, yeah, I was her cavalier. You know how that goes, man. I was like, the fuck cavalier? What the fuck is that shit? Because they definitely don't got that shit in the Tarim. No,
they don't.
So Abigail realizes how Adil probably took this and just explains, like, yeah, Cavaliers are usually intimate, but it wasn't with us because we never clicked that way. And again, significant for Abigail because she keeps mentioning how she clicks with Adil unlike anything else in her life, so she's being very sincere here, and they get pretty cutesy for a minute, but Abigail, again, notes she's glad he's making friends, to your point, because she wants him to stay at Fort Salem, and if he has connections, maybe he'll stay. And so it just ends with them on that note, just like staring at each other. So we get the fact that Adil's a little conflicted about where his loyalties lie, I guess.
I love Adil, and I think this scene is cute, but can we go to Subtext Alley?
Yeah, we're definitely going to Subtext Alley.
Because that's what I'm calling this from now on.
Yeah, so meanwhile in the barracks, Tally is taking a nap, I guess, for some reason. And in this nap, we get part 2 of this jungle dream with the mysterious dashing soldier and flashback Sarah Alder.
Again, you're touching your hair!
Dashing soldier. I got the visual right now. So anyway, what's to note about Dream Part 2? There's no red flashing along the edges in this dream like there was in the first dream. But this time there's this very distinct, distorted type of music playing in the background that I'm dubbing Mystery Soldier's theme music because it keeps coming up anytime we see the mysterious dashing soldier. And in this dream, Tally's just in the background watching this conversation go down between Dashing Soldier and Alder. And they're talking about the bottle work we saw in the last dream. And what we learn from this conversation is that the bottle work was not canon at all. So it's something this soldier admits that she made up herself and says, well, it worked. You're obviously impressed by this, Alder. Maybe this could be canon one day, right? I made new work. And Alder says, the Hague would never approve. And I think as Eliot talks about when he talks about the difference between canon, which is, again, work that the Hague has deemed appropriate for war, versus off-canon work, which they say absolutely not. The difference really is it comes down to work that in which, like, the other person the work is being acted on loses bodily autonomy or loses control of their mind. So it hints at the fact that this bottle work was some kind of mind-controlling type of work.
Ironic, in a way, since they have no bodily autonomy.
I know, it really is. Yeah, since they're all property of government. But again, like, that's like the dividing line between, I guess, our morality of war. It's like, if we can have the capacity to take over your mind and make you do horrific things and make you commit suicide, but we're not going to do that during war, as that's where we draw the line as witches. And so that's what Alder's kind of saying. Like, yeah, that was great and it helped us, and that was kind of illegal what we just did, but no, we can't. That can't be canon because the Hague would never approve that. And the soldier, as she keeps talking to Alder, you get the sense that, like, she's really proud to be in this company with Alder, and she says, I'm happy to serve your general. Like, she obviously has this respect for Alder, and she looks up to Alder, and Alder admits in this conversation that she's been watching this soldier. So she's taken a personal interest on this particular soldier. And she notes that the work you can do is really rare, but it's too wild. And she says you need to put that power in the service of your will. So saying that this soldier has a lot of raw power that needs to be harnessed, because if she doesn't, it's dangerous. And it sounds to me a lot like what's going on with Raylla right now. Or like, since the beginning, Raylla has had this raw power that she had no idea how to control. And we saw in certain moments it kind of made Raylla dangerous. Like the healing lesson with Isadora where she knocked everybody out. Like, so I think there's a parallel going on between Raylla and this soldier in how you have raw talent here that's not yet harnessed. And so Dashing Soldier says, well, Alder, maybe you can help me harness this power.
Okay. We're deep into Subtext Alley at this point.
This is just flirting. This is
straight up flirting.
It's like, yeah, Alder, maybe you could pull me aside and show me what to do. I don't know.
And Alder's like, maybe I can.
Alder's like, yes, wink. I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the obvious ex-girlfriend vibes I get from them,
Totally.
It's totally a mentor-mentee bond is what they're basically agreeing to. And as this little agreement happens, there's this split second that occurs where Dashing Shoulder flips around and lightning blasts a groups of enemies sitting under a tree. And for good measure, Alder helps her and wind strikes this branch to fall on top of them, for good measure. And when it's over, they're kind of staring at each other like, yeah, great job. We work well together. And then a bell tolls in real life and wakes Tally up out of the dream. And Tally's face, when she wakes up, is this look of pure ecstasy. Like, she just had the best dream ever.
I'm wondering if she's getting the feelings, too.
Yeah, I think the ecstasy was palpable between Alder and Mystery Soldier, unlike the M and Raylla interaction. And Tally's like, woo! I got the sapphic vapors from that. Woo!
Yeah! Woo! The sapphic vapors come through dreams.
I want to see where that was going.
Exactly. She's like tuning into the story to find out where it goes.
Yeah, do I get part 3 next time I take a nap?
Exactly.
These private lessons? What?
Private lessons in quotes. I love it.
I love it.
Damn.
Dashing Shoulder, man.
It was so obvious.
Oh yeah, it's so obvious.
Jesus, Lesbian Jesus, hydrate yourselves right now.
For that Dashing Shoulder flashback Alder.
Because you're going to need it. But
I need it. I'm going to hydrate right now.
You hydrate thinking about your Dashing Soldier.
I will.
But we're going to go to our first War College lesson. Like, not our first, sorry. Not the first, because we've had Mother Tongue. This is our first, like...
combat lesson?
Work lesson. Work. Okay. And we are introduced to one of my favorites ever. The most, like, dark Hogwarts vibe teacher in War College.
Yes.
The most badass War College teacher, Major Magna Verger.
Yeah. Major dark arts Harry Potter teacher vibes. So major.
Yes.
She definitely hangs out with Lieutenant Tata off screen. Let's just throw that out there.
Absolutely. They drink together.
Yeah, they gossip.
From flasks leaning up against a tree.
Oh, yeah. It definitely happens.
While Major Verger is hitting acorns with her cane.
Yes.
I don't know.
I love it.
Because that cane, her intro, like, it's perfection. She steps down, that cane hits the ground, and it's just like... boom.
I'm here, bitch. All eyes on me.
I'm here, bitch. All eyes on me.
It's Verger, bitch.
So, she's got the students in the room in a half circle, and this is their intro to off-canon work. So, they're not going to learn how to use off-canon work. They're going to learn how to recognize it and defeat it.
Can I just point out, we just came from a dream that Tally had about off-canon work. And now we're learning about it.
Da, da, da.
So that was on purpose.
Yes, it was. Isn't everything?
Yes.
So as she explains what they're going to be doing in this class, the students are getting more and more uncomfortable and hot. You see them loosening their jackets and just kind of fanning themselves. So... at the end of that little speech, Abigail asks if they can turn the radiator down. And Magda's like, with that grin on her face, what radiator? And then she closes the seed box and everybody's okay again. So she gives this super awesomely creepy augmented laugh and then tells them that sounds are all around them. Ones that they are in their range of hearing, some that aren't in their range of hearing, which is important. So she's giving them their hitting home with the fact that there are all sorts of sounds. Remember that your work comes from sound. And remember that people that will try to defeat you are using the same vector for their work. So you have to be very conscious of all the sounds around you. And then Tally wants to know, she's perked up because this is off canon stuff. And she wants to know if the army's ever used off-canon work in combat. And the major is very quick to say no. Like, no. And she says that this is the kind of work that their enemies use, specifically the spree. And we cut to Raylla.
The spree. Call back to Tally's dream.
Think about Tally's dream.
Come on now.
And the spree.
All right there.
And off canon.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Anyway.
So, we come back to Raylla, who looks really sad for a second because this is her,
what's she thinking?
3:00 reminder that Scylla exists.
Yeah. Again, highlighting that they're always thinking about each other in one way, shape, or form. Yes. Mm-hmm. Bring on the angst.
Exactly. They are OTP, ride or die.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right. She's not over Scylla. That's what this is all about.
No, never be over Scylla. So the major rings a bell, and then everybody starts to choke. It's like, what the hell? I don't like it. And then she rings it again, and everyone turns into a robot zombie. And then gets up from their desks, puts a black bag over their heads, their own heads, and marches out of the room like good little soldiers who are under a off-canon behavior modification kind of work.
Yep.
After this, they wake up in this room that's very disorienting visually and sound-wise. So there's a lot of sound going on in this room. And remember, we're supposed to be focusing on sound. So they're in a room full of clocks. When they pull the bags off their heads, you got lights flickering. You've got these gas lights located throughout the room that flicker as well, because that's what gas lights do. And then while everyone's trying to, get their legs in this weird room, Tally walks over to this window that had the curtains kind of partially, you could see the light coming through. So she pulls back the curtains and there's nothing there but a brick wall. So that's Tally's first clue that this is a test, basically. So they're trying to figure out what the hell this test they're supposed to do to get through this test. And they're looking around for whatever the source is of this whole everything that's throwing them off and making them hallucinate. And then Abigail thinks she finds it and she smashes a music box. And then a door opens and these cadets that we don't know just kind of run away. So they're eliminated from, it's like, why even have them there in the first place?
Were they the other part of the coven? Or just like, bye?
I couldn't. They're so, you don't really see them up close a lot. So I'm like, who are these people? I mean, were they just there so that they could run out that door and Tally could go, no?
Yeah, they were the cowardly cadets.
Because if you haven't gathered by now, this is Tally's scene to show her power.
Yes, it sure is.
This is your Tally is the most powerful knower
ever
in existence intro.
Yes.
So after those folks run away, Raylla picks up this clock and the hands of one of the hands of the clock elongates and grabs her arm. And so she just fights with that for a second and like throws it down. And you see Tally start to visualize the sounds as sort of a vapor around the room. So she's trying to track this and just kind of says, guys, I can see it. I'm trying to find it. Because Abigail's kind of like done with this too and is like, can you do something? And she's like, I am. Like, I can't, like, you can see that it's everywhere. So she's just trying to track this to the source. And then another door opens and she leads them through it. And then that's the end of the scene.
Yeah, it's wild. And so this whole place is called the Dollhouse. And Elliot says the purpose of it is really to just distort all of their senses. So I didn't realize this too. They're also distorting their sense of time. I think that's why he had all his clocks in there. So it seems like all this time is passing for them when in reality it really isn't. And it's wild.
I'm going to bring this back to the real army. This is the witch army version of the gas chamber that you go through.
Yeah, I think it's
the tear gas. So, there you have it.
Yeah, but with magical work.
Magical work.
Oh, Abigail's like, girl, you ain't doing anything. I'm like, Abigail, what are you doing? You're not doing anything either.
Yeah, like, what the fuck are you doing, Abigail? This is you could be doing something too. I mean, everyone, if there's something that has to do with knowing, everyone just automatically puts the load on Tally's back and is like, all right, do something, Tally.
I know, shouldn't you guys be trying to learn how to know? But whatever.
I mean, at least Raylla's trying to pick shit up too and like figure stuff out. She doesn't even like.
So was Gregorio. Abigail was literally the only one doing nothing.
I mean, after she smashed that music
like,
box, she was like, I'm out.
I'm done. That was it. I contributed. Girl.
This is below me, beyond me, whatever. Tally, do something.
I can't weather work my way out of this. I'm over.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's just Abigail still learning how to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so yeah, we cut from the disorienting dollhouse and shoot over to our spies having drinks with Shane and Bonnie. And so the undercover besties, Mama Costi and Scylla, are slinging beers with Bonnie and Shane, just having a good old time bonding after that totally horrifying anti-witch rally. And Bonnie drops the obvious hint that this movement, aka the Camarilla, has been a bit of a boys' club. So, again, Elliot's setting up the fact that the Camarilla is mostly male-driven, which is a completely opposite group to, like, the witches, which is, like, mostly female. So, yeah, it's a group of angry white men opposing women. So, social commentary, that's all this is. And Bonnie, as a woman, is like, well, you know, I've felt othered in this group, is what she's saying. And Shane, being the misogynist he is, does not like this. And he's like, well, you've never complained before. And this made me so angry the first time I heard it. So I was like, complained? So it's hinting at their power dynamic here. Because Bonnie backpedals immediately. And I think, like, the beer loosened her tongue a little bit. And she said her inner thoughts out loud. And then she's like, oh, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's nice to have ladies around so we can do women things, you know. So you just get the sense that there's a power imbalance between the two of them. Shane has the power in their relationship. It's very patriarchal. And Bonnie is actively brainwashing herself to go along with this on his behalf.
Yep.
And I hate it.
He's using her vulnerability against her, which is a theme.
Yes.
Just like abusers do.
Yes.
Because I'm going to be honest with you, he fits all of the categories for emotional abuse.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically the Camarilla. It's just emotionally abusive men.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's gross. So, yeah. You get the sense from that Bonnie definitely needs a friend because Shane, her husband, is not on her side at all. He's exploiting her or whatever. Or just, she's supposed to fit the role of, like, the traditional woman who just does woman things and doesn't have a thought. So
does whatever he says, is subservient to him.
Exactly. It's gross. So, which
is everything that makes us want to vomit.
Yeah, this makes me really angry. So Bonnie, after clarifying that with Shane, is like, I gotta go do ladies' things and go to the bathroom. So she gets out of there. And it leaves the other three to toast ridding the world of monsters, aka witches. And halfway through this toast, Shane makes eyes with some creepy dude at the bar. And he excuses himself to go get more beer and go talk to the creepy dude. And while he's doing that, Scylla and Mama Costier have amazing banter. That's basically like, either you go or I go because we can't work together. Spree and the army don't mix. And Anacostier's like, girl, I don't want to work with you either. Like, this obviously is the worst. But they watch this not so subtle deal going down at the bar, where Shane and the creepy dude exchange a literal rolled wad of cash. And it looks like a drug deal happening out in the open. So either indicating that the Camarilla are either deeply stupid or super arrogant that they won't get caught doing whatever this deal is. Or they're arrogant and well protected because they paid off law enforcement. So even if somebody called the cops on whatever creepy shit they were doing, they're not going to get in trouble anywhere. So it kind of shows like where the Camarilla is at right now. They're doing stuff out in the open, not giving a fuck. Like,
I also wonder if this is a Camarilla bar. Like,
right, that's what I mean. It could be. It shows, I think it's either they're stupid like this Bree who just does bad spy things, or they're just very arrogant and well protected by all this money they have.
I think it's number 2.
Me too. Also, they're men, so I don't think they're that smart. But anyway.
I wanna point out the how Mama Cassia and Scylla were super pretending to be drunk, and then all of a sudden when Bonnie and Shane leave, they're like stone cold sober.
Yeah, it was great.
It was hilarious. Automatically switch.
Yeah, Mama Cassie's like drinking beer, their hand up in the air, just like she hammered, and they're like, ugh, this is the worst. I hate pretending. So like, do witches have higher alcohol tolerance? Because they were straight up drinking.
They were chugging, yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, so that was...
Is that, or is it just that Anacostia and Scylla are badass enough
yeah.
that they have a higher tolerance themselves? I could see that.
I could see that, for sure.
Because we know Tally doesn't have a tolerance.
No, Tally smells alcohol, and she's truth-telling, huggy.
So I think it's a Mama Castia and Scylla thing.
Definitely could be. But, so while this, they catch the drug deal, and Mama Cassie's like, well... I get that you don't want to work with me. I don't want to work with you, but are you sure you want to pull the plug here? Because this just got interesting. And Scylla doesn't really say anything, but her face and her energy is just like, ugh, you're right, and I hate that you're right, but this is interesting, and well, and I really need to know what this expensive deal is all about.
Exactly. So we're seeing the continuance of our like super spy duo develop.
Yep, and like again, they are onto something.
They are, and they're better together. So, as much as it pains Scylla and Anacostia to a certain degree, I don't think it pains Anacostia so much as working with the spree makes her wary. Not so much Scylla, because I think she has a good beat, a good like feel for Scylla.
Scylla is definitely a pain in the ass, but Anacostia knows how to handle her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who else in the world is better at handling pains in the ass? Anacostia. Like Mama Castia's got this. It's just like handling her little basic
babies.
Her little cadets in basic. Exactly. So yeah. Oh my goodness. That takes us back to far less misogynistic scene.
But still creepy.
But so very creepy.
Yes.
I regret having to see this happen, honestly. Because I don't like dolls, okay?
Right. Why? Did the room have to be filled with creepy dolls? Why?
Because that is such a universal trigger for people.
They were in like straight jackets and creepy as fuck.
Creepy as fuck. Oh God.
So creepy.
If they'd had like real clothes on, it would have been less creepy. So
yeah, like rag dolls,
Props to the props department for that.
So
but
creepy.
They're not only are they dolls, they're freaking life size.
Right. They come in all sizes in that room. It is so creepy.
But my eyes automatically go to the life size ones, and I only notice the smaller ones when someone picked it up, and I was like, oh man, those are like the dolls my aunt used to make. Like she would make little bunnies.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, this is creepy. Can I not look? Because it's not cool. Not only that, the creepy children giggling sound comes in.
That's what I mean. Everything about this was just the worst.
Everything about this is a horror movie I didn't sign up for.
Take me back to Tally's dream with the dashing shoulder.
Yeah, thank
please.
you. Good Lord. I'm not as into Dashing Soldier as you are, and I'll take that. Like, can we go back?
Can we go back, please?
But, so, the dolls, we all knew it was coming. You don't have creepy life-size dolls in a room without having them come to life and attack people.
Yeah, otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. What's the point? So, they attack everyone, but they fight the dolls off. and they're trying to gather themselves and Tally's, trying to find where the source of all this is still. And then she sees a doll take Abigail and another doll take Raylla through this door. And that's when she turns around and just kind of zeroes in and realizes that the source of all of this was the gaslights, which is funny because gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
So she walks up, turns off the gaslight, and everything goes back to normal.
What a statement. Stop the gaslighting.
Yeah. Stop the gaslighting.
Love it.
So, which the term gaslighting originated with one of my favorite movies ever.
Ooh, do tell.
Funnily enough, 1930. I believe it's 1930. It could be 1932. Can't remember exactly. 1930 or 32 movie called Gaslight.
Oh, yeah.
Starring Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer. Also the first film appearance of Angela Lansbury, a.k.a. your favorite detective from Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
So, just FYI, that's where the term gaslight comes from, because it's a husband using gaslights to make his wife think she's crazy.
And, what's Tata's friend's name? I lost it. Verger?
Magda Verger.
Was gaslighting the cadets.
She was gaslighting them like crazy. So, Magda and some other cadets, including M, I guess they're other unit members, or not unit, but other company members, open the whole dollhouse.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a second? How extra this room is?
It's so extra.
They didn't open the door. Like, the door did not function. The whole ass room, like, slices and opens to unseal them. It's the most extra thing I've ever seen.
It makes me think that
amazing.
This is probably some kind of thing that they reuse for certain scenes.
Yeah,
so
totally.
This is just a set that they use, and in this particular scene, they get to use it like you're watching a behind the scenes almost.
Yeah, it's super cool.
So it's really cool.
I love it, but like so extra. The room splits
so extra.
Open. I love it.
The room splits open, guys. So Magda is super impressed that Tally defeated the dollhouse on her first try, because that's the first time that's ever happened. And then Tally, super excited, says that she could see the sound, which surprises Magda. And she says, really? That's interesting, which is the most, surprise, oh, that's cool, you're ever going to get out of Magda.
Yeah, that's it. That was the height
to
of
her, that's a level 10.
She was essentially jumping for joy in that moment. That's
exactly. Exactly. So it was like Isadora discovering a new thing.
Yeah, discovering another mycelium or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So then Gregorio was like, so what happened? Like, where's the first room? And Magda looks at Tally to kind of like, you gonna get it? And Tally goes, there was no first room. We were always in this room.
Fuck this room.
So, AKA, Tally is the most powerful knower to ever know.
She is. She knew literally all the things.
Yep. And she can see sound.
Yeah, which is pretty...
Which is important later on.
Which is pretty cool, and apparently not common, is the other piece I got from that.
So, basically, think about the fact that you've got a bellwether weather worker, Raylla, who had a lot of power to begin with and is now extra powered by her rechargeable battery, the mycelium. And then you've got Tally, the super powerful knower.
Yeah, man.
So they are a unit that Alder would totally take note of.
Yeah.
Logically.
This, I am very confident this will get back to Alder through Magda.
Oh, absolutely, because they have whiskey sometimes.
I feel like Magda's always sipping whiskey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But also, Tally, right when this scene is about to be over, says, so where are Abigail and Raylla?
Yeah, where are they if this room was completely sealed in one room?
Thank you.
Explain that to me.
Where did they go?
Did they unseal that room while they were all being gaslit and somebody like legit just like pulled them out of there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So anyway, yeah, they're gone. And where are they? Where are they? So we cut over to Isadora enacting her master plan in the Necro Lab. Because she kidnapped Abigail and Raylla. And when Abigail and Raylla wake up, they're in these separate chambers now. These like metal pods with windows. Whereas when we opened the show, they were in the same pod. Isadora has now separated them. I want to note that the light in the chamber is green. So this is a Raylla and Scylla light. So this is like life and death merging kind of light. And Isadora taps into her Oscar-worthy acting skills and just starts monologuing at Raylla. And she's like, you touched her and now you have to pay. And the way she says this, like, Emily, girl. First time I watched this, I laughed so hard at that line.
It's so good!
Because it's Isadora being jealous that the mycelium, touched Raylla. So she's mad. She's just straight up, I think this is her honestly being really mad. And I thought it was so fucking funny. But Isadora does her own gassing of the two of them and starts releases this valve. And it floods the chamber with this toxic gas. And Abigail and Raylla start panicking and pleading for their lives. But Isadora is not done with her monologue and she whips around at Raylla and starts going off about, you have no idea what you've done, my research is ruined, and all this stuff while Raylla's gasping for breath. So this is Raylla reliving Isadora's healing lesson from a long time ago where she's torturing everyone. But Isadora's so into this and emotional and just upset. She's like, you stole years of my life. And while she's monologuing, Abigail passes out. But Isadora doesn't bat an eye or even look at Abigail. She doesn't give a fuck. She's like, whatever, bellwether down, whatever. She's just focused hard on Raylla. And as Raylla is getting closer and closer to passing out, the mycelium forms this chitin egg barrier around Raylla. And I want to note that this is actually based off of a thing that a certain species of fungi can do. It's called the Phallus inducatius. And this type of fungus is commonly called the stinkhorn, and it got this colloquial name because it has this odor that's commonly mistaken for dead animals. So it's a death fungus in a certain way, sense-wise. And the fruiting body, so that's the mushroom that we see of this fungus, is characterized by this conical bell-shaped cap on the stalk, and it creates this delicate lacy skirt that hangs beneath the cap all the way to the ground. So that's, I think, was the inspiration for this barrier thing the mycelium just made around Raylla. So look that up. It looks very, very similar.
Also, stinkhorn,
yeah.
Dead animal.
Yeah, dead animal. So yeah, you can smell it in
No, you can go back to freaking Scylla making a death cap out of a dead animal whose last name is Ramshorn.
Right. Yeah, it's all tied together. Hence the green light, people. This is the life and death thing. It all comes back together. Yeah, exactly. So, fun tidbit about that. So, Isadora basically just does this experiment and is like, boom, as I suspected, it's all about Raylla. This has nothing to do with Abigail. And she expresses this slinging whiskey with Alder late at night after the experiment ends. And Isadora's out of her lab coat now, just hanging out by the fire with Alder, and confirms, well, the mycelium, those powers are coming from Raylla and Raylla alone. And it's this protective magic where it's triggered by real fear and real danger, as we suspected. So for me, this is more confirmation that Isadora and Alder give zero fucks about them as humans. And Isadora doesn't give a fuck about rules or people's feelings when scientific discoveries are on the line. So they were just like, let's do this, even though it's extreme, because I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. And Alder is just soaking all this in, and she's like, great, yeah, well done, we did it. And thanks her for approving the test. So they've been very buddy-buddy this whole time. And then the subject goes to Abigail. And Isadora is like, well, Abigail, she took a swing at me. Which is funny.
Hilarious.
And something Abigail would 100% do after she just knocked her out with toxic gas. But Isadora taps into her humanity here and is like, well, I think Abigail is really disappointed that she's not going to be a part of this anymore, because the witch bomb is Raylla, as we've seen. And and that's very perceptive because that's what we saw this whole time with Abigail. She was so excited about being part of this work that could become canon and put her on the map as Abigail. And so, yeah, this is something that's going to hit Abigail pretty hard, to not be a part of this great big weapon that the army now has. It's just Raylla, who doesn't even want it. So that's going to be a blow to Abigail. And Alder has a line of, well, bad brothers are nothing if not ambitious, which, so true.
Damn true.
Damn true. And by the end of this, they agree to just keep, letting Isadora do all these tests, experiments with Raylla, which is the thing Raylla didn't want, and it's now confirmation that this is going to happen. And Alder ends this exchange by saying, be careful with Raylla. She just became one of our greatest assets. And as Elliot said in the After the Storm, Alder's head is very much all about showing people, aka the Hague, what Raylla could do, because this is now the army's next great weapon. And so Alder really just wants to, she's like, Isadora, keep working with her so she can harness this, because we need to show off this weapon like ASAP kind of thing. So again, dehumanizing Raylla in the whole process. Like, we got to humanize Abigail in this scene to be like, oh, she might have some hurt feelings about this, but Raylla's feelings, nobody cares. They're all just looking at her as an experiment, as a weapon. It's dehumanizing to Raylla, which is really sad.
Very sad. And also, guys, can you not see the hypocrisy?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't even...
Yeah. It's the hypocrisy and cognitive dissonance when people get extreme,
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we go from one debriefing to another debriefing.
Pretty much.
In a way, because, of course, Raylla is pissed as fuck about all of this. And, Ray is, not into this whole thing. She's, once again, even more afraid of being a lab rat now, and she says the only people she trusts are Tally and Abigail at this point. But that leads Tally to ask a question that is very... I mean, it's what I wanted to know, too. Like, what does it feel like when the witch bomb goes off? And Raylla tries to describe it by saying it's exciting and it's terrifying. It feels incredibly powerful, but it's out of her control. So she's going to have to learn how to control the witch bomb if she's going to harness it and use it as a weapon.
I love the way she delivers it, because while she's saying this, obviously she's struggling to come up with the right words to describe it. Raylla just looks so dead inside.
She does.
It's so hollow. It's like she's describing this really powerful, big emotional thing that she feels when she goes through this, but the way she looks when she's saying it is just, she just looks dead inside. You know what I mean? Detached from it all.
Exactly. I think all of this has completely drained her.
Yeah, I do too. Literally out of her control. All of it. Even how she feels is out of her control. It just, Raylla is spiraling, I think.
She has absolutely no idea what's going to come at her next, because first it was, well, I have to go to the army. Second, it was Scylla. Third, this new, because she freaking touched her mushroom wall, she's now being a lab rat and being put through all of this torture. Elliot torturing Raylla consistently.
Yeah, there's more torture in store for Raylla in season 2. But yeah, very good summary up to this point. It's just constantly one thing after the other, her life just not being in her
And she
hands.
never, ever, ever gets to process it.
No. That is my biggest complaint. They never let Raylla process anything. That's why she looks dead inside. It's always one thing after the other with Raylla, and she never gets to process any of it. She's just constantly getting bombarded with all this trauma. I hate it.
Raylla's just along for the ride and surviving. Doesn't know how she's surviving, but she is.
Seriously.
Just on instinct, basically. So the only things that she has to hold on to at this point are Tally and Abigail. Even though Abigail's obviously upset that she's not part of the big bad witch bomb now.
There are mascara.
So she doesn't feel special.
There are mascara stains on Abigail's cheeks.
There are. She's been crying. Because it's not only is this happening as far as it's all Raylla and she's not special anymore. her boyfriend might be going away. So
Yeah, she's losing control too.
Nobody in this unit has control right now. Tally's in a good place. She's the only person.
I feel like, yeah, Tally might be the only one that has some semblance of control because she just won the dollhouse thing, and she's got this weird thing going on with Alder dreams. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. It's like none of them can be up at the same time.
No, and why is it always like Abigail and Raylla versus Tally?
Yeah.
And there's an imbalance, you know? It's weird.
Right?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, well. Yeah. Interesting. But yeah. So, after that, after she tries to describe what it feels like to have the witch bomb go off, she turns to ask Abigail if she's okay, and Abigail demurs and says that she's just really tired and she's going to go back to the room. So, from that scene, we go to Scylla telling Willa about Anacostia, and she apologizes for not being more careful. Scylla, you're in the spree. That's standard behavior.
Also, Willa, why are you shook right now?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Why? Come on now. We've been over this, but just, you guys are the worst.
Jeez. Seriously? I don't even know.
I don't even know.
So, Willa asks if Scylla thinks that Anacostia is being truthful about working alone, and Scylla takes a second to think about it and says something that I think is super insightful, because I think she's really good at figuring people out, obviously, because that was like just like she had Raylla nailed from second one. And she says it's always very personal with Anacostia, so maybe she is telling the truth.
Yeah.
As much as Anacostia is a part of this institution that neither of these women trust, Anacostia is also Anacostia, and she's not one to just fucking lie about stuff like that.
Yeah, no, Anacostia doesn't really lie, period, unless it's espionage related.
Or trying to save Raylla's feelings, or trying to make Raylla forget about Scylla.
Right, which is in the service of the army and like for the greater good type stuff. So that's usually Anacostia's motivator. So I think, yeah, like you're saying, Scylla's smart enough to be like, yeah, she could be lying, but it's Anacostia, and it's really weird for her to have even been at that rally and to be going along with the drinks. And so there has to be some personal driver for Anacostia and some truth to what she's saying, even if she's not being fully honest, because we're technically enemies at this point, you know?
Yeah, so Anacostia revealed to Scylla her personal information about how she's feeling, not feeling great about Alder in the army at the moment, so she's kind of striking out on her own. And that rang true, because it is true. She, you know, I think that if Scylla knew about Alder puppeting the president, that would really drive it home. But of course, Anacostia is not going to say that. So
no, so Anacostia says enough with enough truth in it to dangle Scylla along. But I think Scylla's also, and Willa by extension, are at the point where they're like, well, if Anacostia is using us, we can also use her.
Exactly.
Just keep your enemies close. You know, they have a mutual enemy now, so they can rally together to be useful army and spree-wise against the bigger enemy. So, but still be wary of each other, you know.
And that's kind of exactly what Willa, I'm doing it too.
I know, it's hard.
Exactly what Willa says is stay the course, but be careful. She's army. You can't ever trust them.
Exactly. And I think that's how Anacostia views them too. You know? So it's mutual.
Exactly. It's a mutual distrust, but willing to kind of look past and also really consider. I think the only, they're in a unique position, Scylla and Anacostia, to have this relationship as far as their personalities and the fact that what happened in the dungeon.
Exactly. No, they definitely bonded. And I think the bond is going to keep this ruse going until it becomes real versus this, like, you know, my side versus your side teaming together, when they have to come to a realization eventually, we're on the same side, you know? And
I do know that some people were like, but how can Scylla be cool with Anacostia when she tortured her in the dungeon? And I'm like, listen, Scylla knows why she got tortured.
Yeah.
Scylla knows what Anacostia was doing, and it was for her cause. It was what she had to do to accomplish her goal of finding out the information. She's not going to blame Anacostia for that down the road. I mean, it's logical that would happen. It sucks and it's traumatizing, but she's not going to hold a grudge about it.
No, because
she's Scylla.
It's not personal to Scylla. She's like, this is business. This is spy business. I get this. If we would have captured you, we would have done the same thing. And it's not personal. Exactly. It's because you're my enemy and I need to get information out of you. Like, that's just the way it goes. And Scylla knew that going into the dungeon. She's like, I know I'm going to get tortured. Like, Scylla knew all that was going to happen. And I think, from the reaction we saw when they were at the rally, like, obviously, I think there's a little bit of a grudge there where she's like, ugh, you were the face of the person torturing me, but, like, you were taking orders for somebody else. Like, I think, like, Scylla gets that. She understands how this works, and it's like, at the end of the day, it's not personal what happened in the dungeon. It's like, it's business. That's the war they're in,
And that's exactly why I wanted to point it out, because it goes to Scylla's character. Like, it points to Scylla's character and lets you see who she is and how she thinks and how logical she is and how she thinks through things. So, yeah.
Yeah, and same thing for Mama Cassie. Mama Cassie's like, that wasn't personal, me torturing you.
They're very similar.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're both business. They're both very business all the time people. So, yeah, no.
Business all the time, unless their mother tongue man or Braille's around.
Right, exactly. But with each other, they're very businessy.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's that. And then after that, we go on over to Abigail and Kalita, who meet in the stairwell and have this conversation about Adil, where Kalita informs Abigail that she's agreed to let Adil stay while she searches for the home for the Tarim.
How gracious.
I know. I love the way she's like, he's my bitch. I tell him what to do.
I know.
But Abigail obviously is really happy about this because Adil, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and so this is confirmation that he can stay, and she just gets really excited and starts beaming. And before she can even really say anything, Kalita's like, listen, I like you. I respect you as a person. However, I need you to understand that in the end, Adil belongs with his people, and he's always going to choose his people, just as you are going to choose yours. So again, all these witches are in the mindset of witches othering witches. And this really is what the Camarilla wants. All these sectors of witches, like the Spree, the Tarim, the army, they all view each other as others, even though they're really one entity. And they're really set on keeping themselves divided over their philosophies, etc., and how traditional they want to be. And so it's sewing in the fact that the witches are ultimately divided, and by showing it through this very personal experience of Abigail and Adil forming a connection with each other, and how the differences among the witches is threatening that, but it's really bigger than that in the grand scheme of this global conflict that's happening.
Yeah. Man. Also, it's just not what Abigail needed to feel even more down.
She at least gets to know, okay, Adil's going to stay here at least for a little while. So while I'm wallowing about not being a witch bomb, I can at least have him around, which is something, And it harkens to the fact that even Adil's life's out of his control. His life is controlled by Kalita and what the Tarim want to do. So no one has agency, basically.
Sad.
Yep. And from there, we transition to the final scene, which is Tally and Penelope bonding in Memorial Hall. So, as promised, Tally is educating Penelope about, what it means to be a witch and witchhood and her roots that she, was unaware of and didn't really have access to. So, she's giving her a tour of the army history to, give her a sense of that. And they're in Memorial Hall walking past all these glass displays with all these different uniforms of battle uniforms throughout the years. And Penelope's so cute. She seems really excited. She's bouncing around the exhibit, and you get the sense that Penelope is really excited about this witch thing, because I really feel like she kind of knew she was different, and now she has an explanation, and so she's really open to embracing this.
She's embracing it. Yeah,
exactly. And this means a lot to her. So Tally's doing a huge thing by giving Penelope this experience, and she's just so excited, and she's like, where do we even start with all this? Because it's a lot, and I want to know everything. And Tally very cutely wraps her arm over Penelope, and she's like, we're going to start with Sarah Alder, because that's where this all started. And they walk into this part of the exhibit called the Sarah Alder Collection. So no, I'm serious. There is.
I know,
goddamn.
but it's still funny when you say it out
The
loud.
Sarah Alder collection. That's where we're going.
It sounds like a fashion line or something.
It does. That was probably all of Sarah Alder's uniforms, honestly. They're walking past.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they go into this room where there's some old paintings and photos, and they're talking about Sarah. And Penelope lets it drops that her dad has mentioned Sarah Alder, and he didn't really trust her. And you totally get that vibe from him, from VP Silver, when he was interacting with Alder in the last episode. But here, this Penelope really is just driving that home. And he, quote, thinks that someone who lives that long, like 300 plus years, couldn't really care about regular people. What do you think about that statement?
I think that Alder herself has shown that she does care about people, but I think it also gives her a completely different... It naturally is going to give her a completely different feeling about the longevity of life and the preciousness of life, because she herself doesn't have to worry about that as much. So I think it affects her, but I think she also still cares about people. Obviously. So he's wrong because he's seeing things black and white, biggity face.
Yeah, I think this is him, VP Silver, a man of privilege, projecting how he views, quote, regular people.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a very bigoted mindset, and a mindset of somebody in a place of privilege, where they're like, who would care about regular people when they don't have to face mortality? So I think it says more about the Camarilla and what they think about, quote unquote, regular people as disposable and something we don't have to really worry about in the long term. Because think about it, they're a group working on rallying up through hatred, quote unquote, regular people to fight the witches. And so in his mind, the witches aren't really human, especially Alder, who lives so long. She wouldn't have, if she lived that long, she wouldn't have to care about people. And I think it's really his mindset and what the Camarilla really think. So
He'd be projecting.
Exactly. So I think it says more about him than Alder, that little statement. So planting more seeds about how despicable the Camarilla are, in my mind.
And him personally.
He's something. Again, he doesn't view the value in quote unquote regular people. So those they deem irregular or worthy or whatever, potentially higher up in the Camarilla, their lives are worth more than regular people. I think that's their philosophy.
Well, they're using regular people as their pawns.
That's what I'm saying. That's why they're having these rallies. They're trying to get the regular people to fight their battle that they really don't have much of a stake in. And it's something that humans in power have done for millennia. And so I think that's what that exchange is really about. And
absolutely,
Tally is on our side about Alder, and she emphasizes with this statement because she just went through this whole personal journey with Alder through being biddied and what went down in the Tarim Basin. And it's basically like, listen, Penelope, I didn't always trust Alder either. And she was going to probably launch into this story about how she trusts Alder, but something catches Tally's eye in the museum. And she sees this photo, and she's drawn to it. And in the photo, it's not a painting, it's a photo. It's Alder and the gang wearing battle uniforms from Tally's jungle dream she keeps having. And they're posing in front of one of those combat planes with Artemis painted on the side, which I thought was interesting because at the end of the season 1 finale, when the unit gets on the plane, it's the same symbol. So I love that that symbol is still what they put on planes many, many years later. So I love that. But Tally noticed when she looks at the photo that there's work in it. And I think that's what drew her attention to the photo. She probably saw the work. And she's like, work was done on this photo. And she sees through the lines of the work that the dashing soldier is trying to be erased.
In the photo.
Yeah, she's technically in the photo, but there was work done to erase her. And she asks Penelope, do you see this person here? And Penelope's like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's nobody there. And then Tally gets this ecstasy epiphany moment where she's like, oh, she's real? And girl, I'm glad that she's real. Look at her. And she's like, but someone is trying to hide her existence. And I think it's homophobia. And that's where it ends.
The forces of homophobia have come together to hide this woman.
They're hiding the dashing soldier, and I'm upset about this. Just like Tally is.
Wow.
But
I feel you.
confirmation to Tally, I think this is really what hits home, that like these dreams that she's having are like the dreams are real. And the person she's seeing was a real person. So this isn't some weird like thing she's making up with Sarah Alder. Like she's like, oh shit, I'm actually having Sarah's memories. I think this is the oh shit moment for Tally.
Yeah. It is. And I think it's going to... It's very exciting. It's very...
I'm excited.
I feel like Tally's on a Nancy Drew mystery kick right now.
She is. She didn't ask for this, but she just became a detective.
Yeah, and she's so into it.
Tally and the mysterious woman.
Tally and the mysterious dashing soldier.
Dashing soldier. I would go find her too. Like, why wouldn't you? But anyway, so that's where it ends. That is episode 2.
Yeah. So a lot of things. So many things.
What were your main takeaways from this episode?
Isadora and Alder dehumanizing Raylla and Abigail when they thought she was part of it as the witch bomb. Big thing. Also, we find out what activates the witch bomb.
Raylla being in danger?
Yeah, like what she has to like really think she's about to die.
Like the mycelium has to think Raylla's gonna die, because Raylla in all those scenarios thinks she's gonna die. But like,
yeah,
the mycelium has to be like, "Girl, you in danger," and then it saves Raylla and Raylla only.
Exactly. So we get to see War College for the first time. Woo! We meet M.
Sekhmet Coven.
We see the new digs they're going to be in. We get a peek at the new uniforms.
Some of their lessons, like languages.
Yeah, languaging. The dollhouse of creepiness.
Creepy dollhouse with actual
I wish
dolls.
I could forget.
Woo.
So we get Willa and Scylla talking about why Willa hasn't contacted Raylla.
Yep.
Going through that emotional journey.
And a glimpse of way the army really fucked over Willa just for marrying somebody who wasn't a witch, which is super fucked up. So
yeah, so fucked up. Thank you. That is another form of torture.
Yeah, why are we torturing collar women? It's collar women.
Yeah, it's collar women.
Who knows what they did to V?
Yeah. Damn V, where are you?
But yeah, so we get confirmation from Willa why she joined the spree, really. Because this bullshit.
Exactly. So she tells her story and you really kind of understand from her perspective more. And then we get Scylla and Anacostia reuniting. Quarterhorn, the birth of. We get to meet Bonnie and Shane.
Better or worse.
And the misogyny train.
Seriously. Some creepy drug deal goes down at a bar. Shane is creepy.
Then we get a nice fun banter with the Scylla and the Anacostia during all of these scenes, which we're going to get more of, which makes me happy. Yep. Scylla and Anacostia just kind of agreeing to exist with each other in these missions. Basically like, okay, I can't get rid of you, you can't get rid of me. We're just going to have to do this together.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or
putting
not.
differences aside for the
Putting
game.
differences aside, exactly. We do get to chill with Gregorio a little bit and get little insights into his personality and his past with Libba.
Yeah, confirmation he was the Cavalier we heard so much
He
about.
was the Cavalier. And, we get Khalida and Adil. Well, more Khalida going behind Alder's back, and then she leaves Adil out of all of his decision making because he's just her bitch. So
yeah, more confirmation of that if you're confused.
Yeah,
Khalida's the boss.
So Khalida's the boss, and she's going on a world tour to find out where she wants them to settle, because God knows Adil's not making that decision. And Alder gives the 3 Bellwether unit ladies a stirring speech specifically for them. We get to see Isadora torturing Raylla again. The crazy mushroom head telling us that it is all tied to Raylla. And let's see what else.
Tally keeps having her dreams about the dashing soldier in the jungle. She sees that they were doing off-canon work and evidence that the army has done off-canon work in the past that is now tied to the spree. And by the end, gets confirmation that this dream she was having was real, as there's a photo of it in Memorial Hall. But the soldier that did the off-canon work is absent from the photo, and she saw work that somebody's trying to cover her up for some inexplicable reason.
Exactly.
And that's really the whole episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of stuff happening. Main takeaways are people are ganging up against the Camarilla. Somebody's trying to cover up the existence of the dashing soldier who is doing off-canon, aka spree work. And Tally is a crazy-ass knower. And Raylla is going to be continued to be experimented on for the mycelium power by Isadora because Alder really wants to show this weapon off to the Hague. So, poor Raylla.
Because Raylla's a weapon, not a person.
Yeah, and Abigail is left out of the loop with all this and has to kind of figure out how to bounce back from that. But at the very least, she gets a dill around for a little bit while Kalita goes and finds a new home for the Tarim. So,
she goes to hang with Sharma and eat some
kick-ass food.
Good food.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous. So that
jealous that way too.
That's where we're at, and that's kind of like the open-ended things for episode 3 going forward.
Yes, and speaking of the knower, that's who gets my Big Witch Energy Award.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Tally being the badass knower that she is. Just because you never really get to see Tally be powerful until this moment, until this episode.
There's definitely hints at it, but this one really was just, she drove everything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
With her knowing.
You get to see it when they're in the Tarim Basin a little bit because she's the one directing that everyone's relying on to tell them where the danger's coming from.
Yeah, there's hints at it at City Drop when, like, they're in front of the spree vans. Mama Cassie's like, get your scry, and Tally's like, I don't need it. I can already see what's in there. We saw it when they had their first Seed of Revealing lesson, I think, where they're looking for the flags, and Tally was just like, I got it all. So you can kind of see that, like, she really gravitates towards this specialty, but here it's really confirmed just how unique her power is. With the fact that,
like, they give you the groundwork, but this reveals through Magda's being impressed and being interested in the fact that Tally can see the sound.
Right. She's like, no one's ever done this before. Also, you can see the work. What the fuck? So yeah, Tally's very unique in her knowing.
Yep.
So that's a great Big Witch Energy Award for Tally. I agree with that, but I'm also going to throw Isadora in there because she had so much Big Witch energy, which is how reckless she was, and I love it. She just, like, her acting skills with the monologue to Raylla, she just kidnapped cadets. Like, I can't. And then at the end, she's just very calmly sipping whiskey with Alder by the fire, just like, it's all good. No, I didn't do anything shady.
Satisfied with herself.
That is the energy I'm here for. And I love it. So Isadora gets it for me for her just reckless regard for rules, and I love it. Go Isadora.
I feel that.
I love it. It's also really hard not to give that to Kalita anytime Kalita does anything, because every time Kalita does something, it's Big Witch energy. Like, always.
It is.
She's like, yeah, I just ordered my brother around. I'm ordering Alder around. Like, she's the best.
Yep. I've got General Sharma under my thumb.
And Charmer's thrilled about that. She's like, yeah, girl, I'll be your bitch. Mm-hmm. Whatever.
Exactly.
I love it. So, yeah, so if you have a different Big Witch Energy Award winner, let us know.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Come and talk to us about anything.
Yeah, for real.
We love it.
We do. We love it. You got more tertiary characters for us? Hit us up. Always want to know what Tata's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, all right, guys. Well, that was episode 2. Thanks for making it through. And till next time, we'll get into episode 3.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys.
Bye.
Bye. And with that, we've been Big Witch Energy. If you like this episode, check out all of our other episodes right here on YouTube. Please like, comment below, and subscribe for more amazing content. Hydrate for Lesbian Jesus.